Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome along to the SimGrid YouTube channel, and it is a very warm welcome to you indeed. We are back once again for the Sprint Cup Season 4, where we head off to Germany, we head off to Nurburgring. It is myself, David Christie, and Andy McEwan once again with you. Andy, welcome back. We've managed to catch our breath after the SimGrid VCO 12 hours of Kyalami for the World Cup. What an event that was, but yeah, great to be here at the Nurburgring, isn't it?
It is, and an important race because we're moving into the second half of the season now for Sprint Cup, and this is always a time in any championship that I really enjoy, because if you have aspirations of winning the championship, this is when you make your move. You try and build a lead or get yourself back into contention. The points start to matter more and more now as we go through these final three races. So yeah, really looking forward to the second half of the season, and I think based on the first three races, David, it's going to be close, isn't it? There still really is no clear favourite emerging.
No, there really isn't. If you are just joining us tonight here on the season, race 1 was Misano, race 2 was at Kyalami, race 3 was that absolute cracker at Bathurst, and tonight we're at Nurburgring. We then head to Zandvoort and then Spa for the season finale. There is the championship standings at the moment. It is random passable in the 992 Porsche at the top of the standings there. A nice little 9-point gap over UK OG 47, and a decent season so far for Maciek Malinowski and Michael Tauscher. Second place there, as we see, for the number 47, and George Boothby and Niels van de Kekkel. Grip Hacks Engineering in third place there with the number 11 there, 92 points. Unisalv Leinen and Jesse Kalpanen, and then it's Carbon Simsport on 84 points there. But you've got to say, realistically, I mean, there's still so many points on offer here. Things could look very different after tonight.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, you can score 50 points for winning a race, so you look at how tight that is at the top of the championship standings with, you know, the top 3 teams covered by just 15 points, and you realise that's absolutely nothing. No dropped scores or any of that nonsense in a championship like this. All of your races count, so if you're Random Pastable, for example, you've already had one not great race at Misano where they finished 17th. Yes, they've won the most recent 2 races, but it only takes another nightmare here or in 2 weeks' time, and all of a sudden they're digging themselves right back out of that hole again. So no one can rest easy here, but likewise, those that are deeper in the championship standings that haven't had a great start to the season, it's not all over for them either, so all still to play for.
All hands on deck tonight, and talking of the deck, let's have a look at where we are going to be racing tonight from our track guide.
From Weissach to Affalterbach, we're on board the 889 Mercedes AMG GT3 with Alaric Enslin behind the wheel, heading down towards the Haughaken, pulling over 245 kilometers an hour in 5th gear, going into the braking zone for the Haughaken from 100 meters out, down to first gear at around 60 kph on the apex. Now up to second ever so briefly before hitting the brakes into the Mercedes arena. Now up to third gear before dropping down into first gear after putting the anchors on. And look at the amount of curve taken on the left before swinging the car towards the right hand side. Exiting out of the corner, now pulling up into third gear at over 180 kilometers an hour, before pulling fourth gear into the left-hander at Valvoline. Down to third gear at 145 on the apex, then into the right-hander at Ford. Second gear at 95 on the apex, before now pulling out from the corner itself and heading down towards the Dunlop hairpin, increasing the speed and the momentum of the car itself, pulling nearly 230 kilometers an hour in fourth before hitting the anchors once again down to first gear on the Dunlop hairpin. Now building the speed, commitment and momentum and the courage to get through the Michael Schumacher S's rather quickly, and pulls on the rev limiter, bouncing off it before hitting fourth in the middle of the Michael Schumacher S's. Now into the left-hander at Hankook, pulling nearly 230 in fourth, down to second gear at 123 on the speedometer. Then the right-hander at the Bidkurve, before now you really start to wind this GT3 beast up to volume number 11, heading into Advan. Now pulling up into fourth gear, going through at over 225 kilometers an hour through Advan before pulling fifth. You then go into the NGK Chicana, down from fifth to third at 160 kph, and then it's the Hyundai N-Curve It is the last corner to circumnavigate on this nigh on 3.2 mile circuit, as now it's the run to the line here on the Mercedes-AMG GT3.
Cracking onboard lap there in the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo here at Nurburgring, and without further ado, we are into qualifying. Noticeable absences from the grids tonight. We've got the GTWR R8G Academy of Chris Hartfield and Marco Muri in the number 32. They have withdrawn from the race, but also Yas Heats, Jaroslav Honzig and Eamon Murphy and the number 39. Now, we kind of saw this one coming with Jardier tweeting early on this evening, and that he's not really feeling so great. Now, normally it'd be, illness or something like that, but he's actually feeling the withdrawals from too much sugar, withdrawn from the one of the favourite beverages, and having first-hand experience of that is not a pleasant place to be.
You see, I've never had the willpower to give up the things that I shouldn't be eating and drinking, so I can't speak from experience, but I can imagine it is. I once went about 6 hours without a cup of coffee, and I didn't really enjoy that very much, so hopefully he starts feeling a little bit better soon, because he's such an integral part these days, isn't he, of these events, and already I've seen people in the YouTube chat, asking about him, making sure that he's okay, so Jardier, we hope that you start feeling better. I'm sure he'll be watching. He may not be racing, but I'm sure he won't be able to keep himself away completely from the racing tonight. And looking forward to having you back on the grid very soon.
Yeah, very much the case, and from experience, hang in there, give it a day, 2 days, and you'll feel better than you've ever felt before. But we go back to qualifying, then 15 minutes left to go in the session. It's a 20-minute qualifying session that we have for you tonight. As always, Bastian Richter at the top of the timing screens with a provisional time right now, because give it 10 minutes or so before you see all hell kicking off. But I mean, realistically, this is one of the most important rounds of the championship, isn't it, Andy? Because I mean, it's the fourth round of the season, 4th of 6. But really, if you're going to be making moves for the championship, this is the go point right now. This is kind of make or break. If you're random pastable, you need to get a good result tonight to kind of stretch that little bit of a gap and try and get yourself a little bit of breathing room. Or if you're all the rest of them, you need to be bringing in that gap and making sure no team can get away.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. It is finely poised at the top of the points at the moment, so that means that a lot can change after tonight's race. So if we do get some of our front runners who slip up a bit, they can find themselves losing not just 1 or 2 positions in the championship, but 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 positions, and then it just gets a little bit harder to sort of bounce back from that over those final 2 races. It's also very easy, though, isn't it, to get sort of conned into thinking, well, there's 150 points left on the table, bags of time to get back into the championship, but that is only 3 races. So if you don't perform tonight, yes, there's still a lot of points on the table, but that hole you're digging yourself out of is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger with every race. But the Nurburgring, it's a track that I'm sure all of the teams and drivers are very familiar with. It gets used an awful lot on ACC. And it's actually a track that sort of suits lots of different cars. It's got tight and technical sections that suit the mid-engine cars. It's got those high-speed sweepers as well, though, where the front-engine Aston Martins and Bentleys might excel. So I do expect a level playing field, and therefore good opportunities for everyone to score points.
Good showing for Porsche in the top 10 just now already, with Michael Tauscher there from random past the ball straight into pole position, 153.052, and it's James Parker for the 888. Is that actually their team name? FFS Sendipoos, that's something. 153.334, 0.2 of a second behind there. And what I like about the Sprint Cup is they get a little bit playful with their team names, do they? It's almost like they're sending up themselves.
Do love a pun name, and that is one of the things I've definitely noticed about this particular series, that they don't hold back, do they, on some of these pun names, but they've kept us entertained in more ways than one this season, really, not just scanning through the entry list looking for funny names, but the quality of the racing as well. You can't help but sit and grin sometimes when you see just how close it's been out on the track, and this is a team definitely that have been in the hunt in pretty much all races so far. The Unicorns of Love, they're well represented with 3 cars out on the grid, actually. The 14, 15 and 16 cars, they're all Porsches, and Michael Tauscher at the moment, as you said, is fastest in the 992 random pasta ball Porsche, so looking good for the German mark at the moment. James Parker, though, in the Aston Martin, he's on a fast lap here, just under 0.3 of a second away from the pole position time at the moment. And this is only a short session, David, 12.5 minutes to go, so drivers should now be getting up to full pace, and they've got to try and maximise now the tyre life whilst they've still got it.
And that's going to be the thing, isn't it? You're going to see drivers catching up. I think you're going to see them getting close to the 153 flats, and then I bet either Tauscher or Ogorodnikov is just going to absolutely blitz them away with, like, say, a 152.8 if that is absolutely possible in the next 10 minutes or so. We'll certainly wait and find out. But this is what seems to happen with all of the qualifying sessions. We get quite close to everyone here. I mean, look at that. That's what, 21 cars in within a second of it, as we see Niels Klinkbuller up to P8 from P15. So that is a cracking lap there for the Unicorn to Love car there. But I mean, in all honesty, it's really, you have to kind of wait until the 2-3 minute to go mark before we really get an idea of who's on the pace right now, Andy.
Yeah, definitely. It's a reasonably lengthy circuit, this one, actually, so I'm particularly surprised to see those times as close as they are. It's just over 3 miles in length, actually, the Nurburgring Grand Prix circuit, but we saw there Hamada Akitsi had jumped into 3rd place. It's all very tight, though, at the top of the timings at the moment. Then Tauscher has a 10th in hand over Parker, who then has just over a 10th in hand over Akitsi. Marius Swarzidlo here in the Carbon Sim Sport Blue McLaren, though, he can't improve. He's down there in 14th place, 3/4 of a second off the time. Max Vollmuth here in the XL Racing by Renvelt and Aston Martin, another driver that you would expect to see a bit further up the order. But David, if he can find 1/4 of a second, all of a sudden he's knocking on the door of the top 10. It is incredibly close in that midfield.
Yeah, and that's what makes it so much fun for the spectators and for us in the commentary box as well. And is the fact that, even we say that magic 1 second mark, but realistically, if you look outside of that, you go down to Jan Batomski in the 69. I mean, he's 1.2 seconds, so he's just 1/4 of a second off of that as well. That's not a bad thing. But Maximilian Walmuth, I think he's heard what you said there, and he's decided to ramp up the pace here because he is knocking on the door quite loudly of the top 10. Is it going to be enough? Because it's going to have to be about a 4/10 improvement there. 11th place, so he's just shy. Oh my goodness me, you couldn't get much closer to actually getting into the top 10. But here's Andre Michel for Turn 1 Pro Racing in the Aston Martin out of the final corner. He's currently 20th position, and he goes into P12 as well. So again, another decent improvement there. But I've also noticed that gap to your leader, James Parker, now just 1/10 of a second. Parker there doing a 153.160. So yeah, this is starting to get a little bit spicy here.
Isn't it just, as we move into the second half of the session then, 9 minutes and 20 seconds left on the clock. Bastian Richter then for the Unicorns of Love, 7th fastest at the moment for the number 16 car, which has not really troubled the front runners in the previous races so far, but this is a good circuit for those rear end Porsches. Swarzidlo looks like he's going to improve again. He was 16th and stays there, actually. So not a massive improvement, if at all, for him. He stays just behind this McLaren, the UKOG 47, number 47 of George Boothby. Now, David, this is a car that has not finished out of the top 5 all season long so far. A 5th at Mazzano, a 4th at Kyalami, a 3rd last time at Bathurst. If that pattern continues, they should be 2nd place today, but at the moment, only 15th in the session, the best part of 3/4 of a second off pole. So I wonder why. Is this not a good McLaren circuit? Is it not a circuit that Boothby is gelling with? Or has he just not yet got a good lap out of this car?
Yeah, we say that though, but at the moment he's only 7/10 of a second off. So it's again, it just gives you some perspective of where that car is. The other weird thing as well, I've just noticed, Andy, is the fact that Random Pastable had a 17th and 2 wins, and Grip Hacks Engineering had a 1st, a 2nd, and a 31st place. That just shows you how important it is getting yourself up into first and second place there. Points mean everything right now, but Boothby is on an absolute charge right now. He's going to make some huge improvements here. Can he get himself up to the top 3 just now? He goes into P4 there. George Boothby then 1/10 of a second, but here comes Tauscher. Tauscher is on a charge as well. We didn't notice that. Bastian Richter for Unicorns of Love taking pole position at the moment, but Michael Tauscher on a mission right now, Andy, to take it as he comes through the final chicane.
So a Porsche front row at the moment then, at the home of the German marque, of course, and with all of these tight corners, you do expect the rear engine cars to be strong. Tauscher looks as though he's about to reclaim that pole position. The question is by how much? Well, there's your answer. Just over 0.2 of a second. And David, you did say we'd get into those high 52s, or 152.815. That is moving the goalposts somewhat, isn't it? And I don't know whether Richter or James Parker or George Boothby will realistically have an answer for that. That was impressive.
I'm going to have to go back on that broadcast and say, I'm pretty sure I actually did say a 152.8 or a 152.9 was going to be the pole time. But this is what happens, right? He brings out that lap, and I'll almost guarantee that nobody else gets actually close to this now. That's normally what we've seen from all of the other rounds in qualifying. They come out with that ridiculous time. Nobody can get close to it. They'll get close to a 153 flat, but they can't break into the 152s. Or if you do, you'll maybe have 1 or 2 other cars. But yeah, that is an amazing lap from Tauscher. And there's nothing that we can say that actually will get over the magnitude of what that is going to do for them. So Olga Rodnikov, I think, is going to move up to P9. Yep. Tinker van der Velde on an improvement as well, 15th place for him. But this is now go time. This is the key point here, Andy, where we're going to see all of the timing screens just going absolutely crazy for about maybe, say, 4 minutes.
Yeah, and George Boothby contributing to that as he jumps onto the front row there, look. So just over 1.5 behind Tauscher, but crucially ahead of Bastian Richter in the number 16 Porsche. Now, Sascha Glatter, here he comes, hammering over those curves through the chicane, and then bailing for the pit lane, so never mind. That looked like it was going to be quite exciting, but I think he lost a bit too much time with that aggressive line through the chicane. Now, we haven't seen much of Bentley so far in this qualifying session. Chris Melbourne here about to try and do something about that. The number 70 car is making its way up through the right-hander at turn 12 towards the chicane. Good overtaking opportunity this, of course, once we get into the race later on, although it is that faster version of the chicane that's in use for this event. Chris Melbourne carries good speed through there. The big Bentley has to lug it round the tight corners out onto the pit straight. Now he's 18th at the moment. That is a decent improvement, actually. 12th place for Melbourne. But what, David, can Bastian Richter do? He's been knocked off the front row. Can he get it back?
Very possibly. I mean, Unicorns Love did come kind of out of nowhere, but we're seeing a lot of cars just making these huge sudden improvements by like 5-6 of a second, Andy. So definitely don't put them out of the equation. And I already had it pointed out that George Boothby sneaking into the 152s as well. I did say possibly 1 or 2, but certainly not many are going to be on to that mark right now, as we see Marco Bischoff in the 991. Oh, and that was a huge wobble there for Bastian Richter there, and it's going to have to be into the pits and regroup and try again. Here's Tinko van der Velde coming across the line in the Lamborghini, was 16th. That's a great lap there for the Sidemax Motorworks Lamborghini there, getting it into the top 10, but immediately knocked into danger on that one. So, I mean, 4 minutes left to go, Andy. It's difficult to see anybody else but Tauscher taking this right now.
Yeah, especially since his nearest rival Boothby's in the pit lane, although James Parker now jumps from 5th to 3rd, so the 888 car, the FFS Sendipoos car, which has actually had a decent season if it wasn't for that 21st place finish at Mazzano. They've jumped into 3rd place on the grid now, and that is a big improvement for Giuseppe Montalbano in the Omega G Performance Bentley into 5th position from well outside the top 10. That, remember, is the car that is 7th in the points, having had a podium at the season opener. Sadly, though, their season has been getting slightly worse as each race has gone by. We've got 3 minutes and 20 seconds left. Josh Inman, one of the next potential improvers. He's got quite a bit of improving to do, hasn't he? 32nd at the moment. And no, doesn't improve on that time, so he's going on to a lap that he hopes will see a more significant improvement. And he did improve fractionally, but stayed in 32nd place. Leonardo Porco is the driver just ahead of him then in 31st place, and likewise no improvement of position for him there. But, you know, we're looking back at 31st and 32nd place there, and they're only just outside of that magic 1 second.
Well, they really are. I mean, you've got every single car on track and they split by less than 2 seconds, considerably less when you consider that Josh Inman even, will be able to probably get that to about 1.5 seconds, and that will really give you an accurate representation of how narrow how narrow the difference in skill level is for these drivers. It's always, it's frightening. I see myself as about maybe say 2-3 seconds off of the pace of these guys here, and whenever you're in a server with them, it is just so disheartening. If I see a name that I recognise from a broadcast, I'm immediately either disconnecting or deciding to sit that race out, because the pace that they've got is just, it's absolutely mind-blowing, and I can't understand where they get it from. But Giuseppe Montalbano for Omega E Performance, he is trying to knock Bastian Richter off of that 4th position here, and the Bentley does have a little bit of pace, just misses out by 3/1000ths of a second, and I don't know if the Bentley's got all that much more to give right now.
Yeah, it's not the first circuit that you think of when you think of tracks that suit the big Bentley, is it, this one? So that's a really impressive effort, actually, and 2 Bentleys inside the top dozen. I think the only 2 Bentleys in the field. This is a Ferrari, you'll have noticed, though, and this is Marco Bischoff in the 991 car. He is 6th quickest then, so Montalbano is actually his next rival then, the car that he is chasing after. The 991 car, not one of the Ferraris that has finished on the podium so far this year. In fact, they've had a 27th and a 28th place finish, sandwiching an 8th place that they scored at Kyalami in round 2. Torzidlo's been knocked out of the top 20 now, by the way. 21st then for the Carbon SimSport Blue McLaren. He's going to improve this time, I think, though, is he? No, stays in 21st place. What about Bischoff, though? Can he get a little bit closer to that top 5 and put this team's season back on track, perhaps across the line he's about to come? Needs to find over a 10th to improve on his position. He does find a bit of that, but not all of it, unfortunately, so stays 6th.
Yeah, and quite honestly now, with 37 seconds left to go in the session, I can't see anybody that is on a lap that is going to be able to knock that pole sitter off of Tauscher, but we'll have a look, because Richter is on a charge, or at least he was on a charge. He was on position to maybe try and squeeze into 2nd or 3rd place, but he might squeeze in another lap here as we've got yellow flags, and there's a car going off into the gravel here. Here is Michael Tauscher, and on his final lap of qualifying, Ogorodnikov jumps into 7th. He was dropped a little bit outside the top 10 there, so good to see him back into the top 10 there in 7th place. But here is your current pole sitter, and quite honestly is looking like the man that's going to have done it all in qualifying just now. He's going to head across the line to secure that. Nowakowski could potentially get himself up into 5th, 6th or 7th position here for Carbon SimSport. Comes across the line. What can he do? 3rd place! Pulled that one out of absolutely nowhere. And Andy, that is potentially huge.
That was a big improvement for this deep into the session. Just as the checkered flag came out, then here comes Tauscher across the line, but he just had that extra couple of tenths in his back pocket, didn't he? A 52.6 looks as though it's going to be the benchmark time. And yeah, I agree. I think that he is just starting to show off now and really flex his muscles. Tauscher, he's been in good form, though, hasn't he, David, over the last couple of weeks, and he's carried that through now into the Porsche, into the Nurburgring, and into the Sprint Cup.
I've just noticed Boothby, and where did Hamada Erkezi come to get himself up into that top 3 there? Because that's now, they two are on exactly the same time between Boothby and Erkezi. So we've still got laps coming in then. We've got Sasha Glatter jumps into P10. A couple of cars that are still on a huge push right now. So this might not be over just yet. Maximilian Walbert then currently outside top 10. He's looking like he's going to try and take P4 or P5 if he can jump up. He's currently half a second off of the pace just now. He doesn't though. Here comes Bastian Richter up in the 2nd place then. So Bastian Richter up into second place with a 152.872. Florian Becker was down in 24th, only improves up into 18th position, but still good run for the Porsche. But a little bit disappointing when you consider that we've got a Porsche 1-2 and Bastian Richter for Unicorns of Love pulling that one out of the bag at the last possible minute there, Andy.
Wow, that was pretty exciting, wasn't it? Yeah, not a huge surprise to see the Porsches go well here. Like I said, it is a circuit that suits them, but then 3 McLarens jumping into the top 5. I was about to make the point, actually, about 30 seconds before the end of the session, that we had quite a lot of different manufacturers. I think it was 4 different manufacturers in the top 5 positions, and now all of a sudden it's a Porsche 1-2, McLaren 3-4-5. So they really did flex their muscles there towards the end of the session, didn't they? But yeah, Michael Tauscher, if he can continue to lap in this race 2 and a bit tenths of a second quicker than anybody else, he's going to be a tough man to catch, isn't he? But Richter has got the machinery to do it because he's also in a Porsche, and you know, qualifying is only half the story, isn't it? So don't go giving those 50 points to the 992 team just yet.
Yeah, there's certainly a full 90 minutes to go, and yeah, we've seen all sorts of things happen during that. So pole position then for Random Pastable Racing. It's second place on the grid for Unicorns of Love Sexy Edition. It's the UK OG 47 team in third, and then in fourth place is going to be STL Esports by Logitech G. So a good result for them. We'll give you a full rundown of the grid in just a couple of minutes' time, but I mean, it's basically a resumption of exactly what they needed to do for the 992 Random Pastable Racing team. Given, Andy, that you know they're in charge of the championship just by only 9 points, but this is exactly the start of the race weekend that they wanted.
Yeah, for all this talk that we were giving it before the session got underway about how, you know, you can lose a lot of points, you can gain a lot of points in one race, that is the way to protect a championship lead, isn't it? They've won the most 2 recent races, and now they've stuck it on pole position by some margin as well, when you consider just how competitive the rest of that session was. They're going to be tough to beat, and you have to say, if they can go on and win this race, I know I'm getting ahead of myself because that's 90 minutes away yet, but if they can go on and win this race, depending on where some of the other championship frontrunners end up, that's going to put them in a very healthy position going into those final 2 races, isn't it?
It really, really is. And with 4 minutes 20 left to go, let's give you a rundown of the grid. We've got plenty of time, so we can give you a little bit of info about the teams as well. So on pole position, as we said, Random Pastable Racing, the Porsche of Maciek Malinowski and Michael Tauscher. Michael Tauscher having got the job done. It's Maciek Malinowski that looks like is going to be starting this race for them. It's then alongside them on second place is the Unicorn Love Sexy Edition Porsche of Leonard Toki and Bastian Richter, Leonard Toki, starting in that car for them. George Boothby is going to start in the UK OG 47 McLaren in third place, and he's obviously teamed up with Niels van de Kekelt. Hamada Erkizi in the sister McLaren in the 27 SDL Esports by Logitech G is starting in fourth position, along with Luke Whitehead. And then in fifth position, it's another McLaren. So again, that comment about the McLaren's not typically doing well has kind of been thrown on its head. Maybe it's been BOP that's changed that, but 3 McLarens in the top 5, and that is the 125 Carbon Simsport of Nick Babin and Krzysztof Maskowski in that one. It's then the 888 Bentley in 6th place of Killian Ryan Meenan. It's the 340, that was the 888 Aston Martin of Killian Ryan Meenan. The 340 Bentley of Giuseppe Montalbano after that mega qualifying run there. Marco Bischoff in the 991 Ferrari in 8th place. Yiger Ogorondikov for SimGrid Pro in 9th position there, along with Alexander Novikov. 10th position is Sasha Glatter in the 81 Aston party going on in 9th, 10th and 11th, because in 11th is Felix Rupert in the 71. It's then the number 11, that is of course Grippax Engineering of Jonas Salvalainen, who is in 12th place. 13th place for the number 70 Bentley of Chris Melbourne. The Porsches in 15th place of Nicholas Hubin, and then in 15th place is the Lamborghini of Lucas Kreuzer. 16th place is the 38 of Jan Willem van Ommen in Aston Martin. The Mercedes down in 17th position. Was expecting to see that a little bit higher up, but one of our few Mercedes left in 17th position, the 285 of Harry Spears for Sidemax Motorworks. It's the 111 elferspot.com Porsche of Florian Becker. We see them all the time, and again out with Richard Lindhorst. And then in 19th position is the number 100 Aston Martin of Andre Mikel for Turn 1 Racing. He'll be, of course, teamed up with Marcel Villert. And then in 20th position is Rasmus Christensen in the 17 Ferrari, Manas Gerardis in the 112 McLaren. It's then Florian de Koop in the 14 Porsche in 22nd. 23rd is the other Mercedes of Alexander Sescher in the 23. The Porsche 187 of Jason Absmeyer is in 24th place. 25th place is going to be Marius Tvorzidlo in the 7 McLaren. Porsche 728 of Gabriel Giorgini in 26th. 27th is the BMW 69 of Jan Batomski. 28th place is the 101 Ferrari of Arthur Sarnacki. The 29th place is going to be taken by the Aston Martin 166 of Alex Radici. It's the 2 Bentleys in 30th and 31st position. Sheldon Muscat, what a season to forget he has had this year. Alessio Milani in the 99 Bentley, and then at the back of the grid, Josh Inman in the 94 McLaren. A huge lineup, some stellar names there, Andy, and some stellar teams. Obviously, a 90-minute race coming up. We've got the mandatory pit stop. The pit stop window opens at 40 minutes into the race. But it's all about turn 1, isn't it, just now? For Leon Atoki, for George Boothby, and for Hamada Arkizi, they have to get past Malinowski on that first turn.
Well, and they have to survive that first turn. I mean, there it is, that first corner. It is notorious, isn't it, this corner, the world over, for creating carnage at the start, because it's quite a long run, steeply downhill. You're at high speed by the time you reach there, and then you've got to go all the way down the gears into first gear for some of these cars, depending on their gearing. And everyone wants the same bit of road. They all want to be on the inside line, clipping that apex and settling in single file coming out of the corner. The trouble is, they all want to be at the head of that single file queue. So don't be surprised if they're 3, even 4 wide by the time they get down there. That's interesting. Did you see that? One of the McLarens disconnected, I think, there. The 4th place McLaren, I reckon that was, of Hamada Akizi, maybe just disconnected going into turn 1. That's not ideal. We'll chase that up for you if we can. But yes, don't be surprised if they're 3 or 4 wide going into that first corner. And then, will they all come out the other side? That really is the big question, and that can derail even the fastest drivers' hopes of winning this race.
True story, actually, on the note of that turn 1. That was actually the very first track that I tried when I loaded up Assetto Corsa Competition for the first time. Was a multiplayer server, and it was Nurburgring, and I literally let out a very loud feminine yelp, because there was a car that went to the right of me onto the grass at full speed and just knocked about 15 cars out. It was quite a scary moment when you're in VR. So yeah, that's absolutely proving your point about that turn 1. Definitely don't think we're going to see that tonight. However, it does prove case in point of how bad that first turn can be, given that everybody's fighting for that same bit of tarmac, everybody's fighting for that same bit of road and for the position that everyone else is as well. So just confirming that Hamada Arkizi has been disconnected from the server. He will obviously try and jump back in. Worst case scenario, I think he'll miss the start and be able to rejoin from pit lane. But the worst things have happened, and he may be able to recover to get a favourable result from that. It's going to be a recovery drive for sure. But just very, very quickly, Andy, I mean, we're coming up to halfway through the formation lap here. First 10 minutes of the race, what do we think we're going to be looking out for?
Carnage through turn 1, a little bit more carnage probably before they're out of the Mercedes arena, but then I think it's going to be key. One of these Porsches, either Tauscher or Richter, is likely to come out of that first sequence of corners with the lead. Can they make the break? Can they pull the pin and get away from the rest of the pack, because that will make the rest of their evening an awful lot more simple. Also, though, keep an eye out for those deeper in the field. I mean, I always have an eye trained on Igor Ogorodnikov at the start of a race. 8th place for him in that 41 Aston Martin. He's going to want to make some progress. There he is, look, the SimWare Pro car that coming into this round is 5th in the championship. Still, though, chasing their first win of the season, and we all know, don't we, that he will stop at nothing to try and get that first win, so watch for him to make progress.
Yep, very, very hungry to get onto the top step of that podium, but it's all about this man here, Michael Tauscher, for Random Pass the Bull Racing. It's Porsche v Porsche going into turn 1, a very strange looking gap in the grid, but here we go. We've got a couple of solo driver penalties that we'll be telling you about in a second, so if you see a couple of penalties popping up, don't worry about it, we'll explain that to you in just a second. But we get ready to go green, the flag waves, and it's a huge start for Michael Tauscher. Gets the jump on Bastian Richter, but Richter has the run down then towards turn 1. Look at the McLaren all by itself then, as we've got a huge gaggle of cars. That's the Bentley trying to run up. There's contact with the McLaren there, but for the most part that is not what I expected, because we've got one car round at the back. But given how notorious turn 1 is, that was very, very clean, Andy.
It's still 3 wide. I'm still holding my breath, though, because Ogorodnikov, Montalbano and Bischoff came out of that first corner. They were actually 4 wide, I think, with Novakovsky in the 125 McLaren. They've settled down now, though, and Montalbano, who had the biggest of sends into that first corner, somehow comes out of it clean and still there in the top 5 or 6. But you're right, I expected a bit more chaos than that through the first couple of corners. I have to say, very disciplined stuff from Bastian Richter as well, because Tauscher left that inside line invitingly open, didn't he, into that first braking zone, and there was no sign of Richter going for it down the inside. He slotted in behind. He realised that it was still quite a long race and there was no real need to take any big risks. So Josh Inman here, I think, has been delayed in the early stages, and there Bastian Richter, look, showing 3rd on the graphic, where you can see that he is 2nd in the race, chasing down Tauscher. But David, you can't help but wonder, maybe Richter has had his chance now. If Tauscher can unlock that pace that he showed in qualifying, I'm not sure Richter's going to be able to go with him.
This is exactly what I was saying on the build-up to the race. It had to be on the turn 1, because we've seen that Tauscher really, really does have the the pace that he's got is absolutely so fast and so instant. We saw that during qualifying. How quickly was he able to get into the pace. I think he was about maybe 3/10 off of his final pole pace within about 4 laps.
Yeah, and that is what he's going to have to try and do again here, isn't it? But remember, those two at the front, they are essentially teammates, because Michael Tauscher has actually just been added to the lineup, hasn't he, for the Unicorns of Love. So, not racing as teammates today, but they do know each other well, those two, and they've been working together recently. Harry Spears is working hard to keep a frenetic baying pack of GT3 cars behind him. It's Marcel Villa there in the Turn 1 Pro Aston Martin that's got a couple of Porsches behind him. Seville in the 17, and they're diving up the inside. There is inevitable contact. Florian Becker gets into the side of Marcel Villa. Becker had just made a good move, actually, on the Ferrari of Seville, but unfortunately his next attempted overtake was not quite as successful.
Yeah, that's a little bit unfortunate. You kind of saw that coming about 15 corners earlier, but Marcel Villa and I think that's the Ferrari of Seville get a little bit up close and personal with each other, as well, as we come back to James Parker now, putting a whole heap of pressure onto the tail end of the McLaren, the UK OG McLaren of George Boothby here. We're still just on our 2nd lap of our 90-minute race here at the Nurburgring, and what a Sprint Cup race it is. Parker, to be fair, isn't too far from Boothby, and Boothby isn't all that far from Bastian Richter, but Richter dropping a little bit back. But I've got the feeling that Tauscher now is going to really start to stretch his legs if he's allowed to.
Yes, meanwhile for 3rd place, James Parker really putting Boothby under pressure. George will not be happy with the way that this race is going so far, because remember, he and the UK OG 47 team are second in the championship. They're 9 points behind the random pasta bowl racing car that leads the way and is already nearly a second to the good in the hands of Michael Tauscher. So not only is Boothby on course, it would seem, to lose some more points in the championship, but actually he's not able to match the pace of the top 2 Porsches. Look at the way he's dropping back into the clutches of Parker here in 4th. So Boothby with a little bit of an uphill challenge here to try and get back into contention. We still have an hour and 25 minutes to go, I realise that, but it's easy if you are in Boothby's situation here to get a bit demoralised by that situation, but he's got to bank the points. If he can finish 3rd or 4th, then maybe in 2 weeks' time, that track will suit the McLaren more and he can get those points back. So he needs to keep his head up for the time being.
Yeah, points make prizes at this point in the season, and it's all about just being able to keep things going right now. But yeah, cracking job from the top 10 teams right now. Here's Harry Spears for Sidemax Motorsports. I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised at the Mercedes. It's really not the car of choice right now, given that it doesn't even feature in the top 15. Some other manufacturers that I would never see in a million years being up in the top 15, like Chris Melbourne in that number 70 Bentley up there, but really the Mercedes just don't seem to have the pace right now at all.
No, it's, again, not really a great circuit for these front-engine cars, is it? And I think that's definitely been borne out of those qualifying times. The Mercedes, of course, is one of those big, heavy front-engine GT3 cars that look and sound incredible, but this not necessarily the circuit for that car to really stretch its legs. There, by the way, you can see on the timing tower some of those 15-second penalties that David alluded to earlier on. They are not for indiscretions on track, they are the solo drivers. If you're not sharing driving duties, you get handed an extra 15 seconds to serve in your mandatory pit stop. So they haven't done anything wrong yet, but I do think we will be hearing from the stewards fairly shortly, David.
Oh, absolutely. They're usually kept very busy on a night like this. So Tauscher to Richter, the gap is just under a second then, and the gap between Richter and Boothby over a second, 1.3 seconds. But this is where the action is right now, on the tail end of that McLaren of George Boothby for UK OG 47, as James Parker in the 888 FFS Sendy Racing in the Aston Martin just behind him. James Parker is doing a cracking job of trying to hold on, but Nowakowski as well. I mean, only 1.2 seconds behind him. He could be featuring in this race as well, but for just now, Michael Tauscher looking very comfortable in the lead of this race. That is a very bare looking Tauro Racing Porsche of the 187 of Leslie Oliphant, trying to catch up onto the back of Marius Torzito in the McLaren number 7. And 5 minutes into this race, this has been a very calm, a very measured start for a lot of these drivers here, Andy. And again, it's one thing that we keep saying, isn't it? The first 10-15 minutes, it's so important for your driver to get a good, calm, confident start.
Yeah, absolutely, because you're not going to win the race in the first couple of corners. I know that's a bit of a cliche at this stage, but it is true. The trouble is, and I noticed someone in the YouTube chat earlier pointing this out, when everyone is as evenly matched as they are, the car you're trying to overtake is probably lapping within a couple of hundredths of a second of you, so there is no easy pass, and that's when maybe you get these sort of 50-50 moves going on later in the race. This is the BMW then that got tapped into a spin, but really there wasn't anywhere that number 7 McLaren could go there. That's the Carbon SimSport car, by the way, that tapped the BMW around, that sits 4th in the championship. So that number 7 McLaren, after a disappointing qualifying session, they're mired well outside the points and already involved in some turn 1 contact. Not a good day in the office.
Yeah, that's exactly the opposite of what you want to get started on this. And Jan Willem van Ommen trying to go around the outside at turn 1, but this is a replay then. This is the number 36 GT Omega RPM Esports outfit, and this is Sheldon Muscat, and that is going to be the Porsche up the inside. Oh, and that's a rather rude poke up the behind there from the 166BetoSimRacing.de. I think that might have been Tom Rare that's behind the wheel of that one. In fact, no, it's not. It's his teammate Alex Radizzi who was responsible there. So I think Race Controller are going to have their very first little chat.
What gives you that idea, David? Yes, that was... I can almost forgive the first bit of contact, but the second headbutt was probably avoidable, you'd have to say. So, yeah, I'm sure Race Control will be having a look at that. Here is another replay, the 728 Porsche now about to get involved in some contact, we presume. Oh, and it gets served by the Ferrari right behind it. That was a great save. I think that's Leonardo Porco, isn't it? I did spot this car in the gravel on lap 1, but Leonardo... I'm surprised in a way that he didn't just carry on there, but that, again, was, well, clumsy is the word I think I'll use to describe that one.
I would have used a much more aggressive word than that one, but like, it is what it is. It's not malicious. It's not been done deliberately. It's just it's an accident in the first 10 minutes of the race, and it will be dealt with by Race Control. I like to think that he's just sitting there trying to recompose himself while the air in that virtual cockpit turns a little bit blue, I would imagine, in the first. I mean, the thing is as well, on the first lap, that's the last thing you want to happen, because you're pushing so hard to get any sort of position, and that just completely destroys any momentum you've got. Thankfully, the good thing about having an incident like that is that with everybody else fighting Andy, they're all slowing themselves down. That gives you that little bit of a lifeline. But when you look to, say, the gap between the 100s of the Marcel Villar and Arthur Sanaki in the 101, that's like 3.5 seconds between those two groups. It is quite a large gap, so you're maybe going to catch up to the back end. I've just noticed the number 94 has disconnected as well, so that is distinct.gg, and that was Josh Inman who was having all those problems early on at the back of the grid. So another one to chalk up. But interesting point there. The third to ninth place is all British manufacturers.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Chasing down the German Porsches, of course, that definitely have a pace advantage, it would seem, at this point. But yeah, we've got McLarens, Aston Martins and Bentleys there, all in a long line. And this is that long line, really. The battle for third on back. George Boothby still in third ahead of James Parker. Actually, there's then a 2-second gap back to this battle, which is Novakovsky in the 125. I noticed he wasn't originally on the entry list in this car. It was originally Nick Babin and Krzysztof Makowski sharing this car, so Novakovsky obviously stepping in to replace one of those two. But he has got his hands full here. He's got the Bentley of Giuseppe Montalbano on his tail. Then he's got Igor Ogrodnikov in the Aston Martin. Then Glatter and Max Vollmuth in another 2 Aston Martins. And throw in Jonas Savalainen in the number 11 Ferrari and Chris Melbourne in that number 70 Bentley. So this is a big line of cars, all nose to tail, and you sense that something's going to happen here. Montalbano keeps peeking to the inside there at turn 1. Eventually, someone's going to have a proper go at making a pass work, and that could trigger all sorts of action.
I think that is very much going to happen within the next lap or so. We'll certainly see. But Florian Becker having a little look there on Harry Spears, and quite honestly, that Mercedes is not looking pacey at all right now. He's dropped off of the back of Jan Willem van Ommen by about a second and a half there. Meanwhile, we mentioned about the British manufacturers here from third to ninth place. What a little group they've got going on here between James Parker, Mikhail Novkowski, Giuseppe Montalbano, Igor Ogrodnikov, Sasha Glatter and Maximilian Wolmuth. They are in one heck of a little scrap here, and it's all relatively clean and balanced right now. I wonder if they're maybe just pushing drivers are just kind of pushing the car in front of them to try and make a mistake.
That's by far the best way to overtake, isn't it, though, especially when the car ahead is running the same sort of speed as you. Here, then, is our first drive-through penalty, and it is for car number 7. Not a great surprise, that, then. That is the Carbon SimSport McLaren that we saw tapping the Space Pace and Vito Sim Racing BMW around at the first corner. So, yeah, what did I say? Wasn't a good day in the office for them before. It's just got an awful lot worse. That car finished second at Mazzano, and as I said, it's fourth in the points, but I don't think they're going to be fourth in the points by the end of this race. Keep an eye here on Montalbano, though. He is actually up the inside of Novakovsky. I was about to say he was making a run at the McLaren. He really has. He's got an overlap now, but the McLaren is good in a straight line and just about gets across the bows of the big Bentley, which now goes to the outside line into the braking zone at turn number 1. Ogorodnikov is rubbing his hands with glee here, the third car in line. A brilliant switchback, a bit of a hip and shoulder from the Bentley, and Montalbano uses a bit of guile and a bit of brute force there to break through into the top 5, and I think he should now have the pace to get away. That move was in the post, wasn't it, really, for a couple of laps there. He looked quicker than Novakovsky, and once he got the chance to go through, he wasn't going to let that go.
Oh my god, I absolutely loved that, I'm not going to lie. That little hip check from Montalbano on the way past was just the biggest slap in the face for Novakovsky you can possibly imagine. And look at this, it is a cork in a bottle. There is a proper choo-choo train going on behind Novakovsky in that Carbon Zim Sport 125. And I've got to be honest, the last person you want to be making unhappy is Igor Ogorodnikov, as Sasha Glatter completely derails my train of thought there by almost derailing his car into the bottom of the hairpin there. That is not what you want to see from Sasha Glatter, but yeah, that's a bit of a wild one. Tried to have a look there and forces the Ferrari of Unisalvalainen to go wide as well and drop a couple of places there as well. So yeah, a little bit of a strange one there. But the point I was trying to make is the last person you want to have behind you, Andy, is Igor Ogorodnikov when you're quite blatantly, really struggling for pace. Drive through for car 111. That is Florian Becker for the contact with the 100, and into the grass goes Unisalvalainen and trying to hold that car on. Rejoins! Oh, that's huge contact there. Oh my goodness me, you hate to see it, but Unisalvalainen, I think that car might be struggling for traction there, and he is going to have a huge conversation, shall we say. I was looking for the word there with their race control. Andy, what just happened?
Well, if that's not an unsafe rejoin, then I do not know what is. And it's very unlike Unisalvalainen, isn't it, really? He's normally a pretty safe pair of hands, but he made the mistake. He hit the curb too hard, and those mid-engine cars like the Ferrari, they don't like that. That's what put him on the grass, but then in his haste to get back on the road, he's just floored the throttle and sort of slid back onto the road. And of course, even if you are trying to apply the brakes on the grass, and those who have played Assetto Corsa Competizione will know that that doesn't really do a huge amount to slow you down, and he just lost control. And unfortunately, I think it was Nicholas Huben, wasn't it, in the Lamborghini that he collected, or that collected him, really, and that will have done an awful lot of damage to both cars. A really unfortunate incident, though, for one of the cars that was running in and around this top 10 battle, but yeah, to your point about Novakovsky and Ogorodnikov here, I'm sure that Novakovsky is not going to be too pleased with the way this race is panning out. You can see the way that Montalbano has gapped him now to the tune of a second. And looking in your mirrors, David, and seeing Ogorodnikov there, it really is the equivalent, isn't it, of looking in your mirrors on a nice, quiet country road and seeing an angry white van man with his headlights on full beam inching up behind you. You know that he wants you to get out of the way, but that really isn't in Novakovsky's best interest, is it?
We need to start making that. I mean, we'll check that out in just a second. And this is over the curbs then for... That's a bizarre instant there for that Grip Hacks engineering machine. Comes back on. I have to take that back completely. I was obviously putting a lot of blame onto him for that rejoin. I don't know about that, because it does look like he's tried to pull it back under control, and it looks like it's just jerked forward. It doesn't look like he's rammed on the power. Now, obviously, we're not in race control. We don't get to see the driver inputs there. But yeah, I mean, I think from the looks of it, he's tried to hold on to control. Oh, here we go. Right. So I was saying we don't get the inputs there, but let's have a look here. So he goes over. He's onto the brakes there. He goes very, very wide, and then so this is a couple of corners behind. So we're obviously coming up to the right hander here. So this is going to be coming up towards through Van Bogen, and then it's up to the NGK chicane, and then pulls it into the left, and the car just launches it as the curb. So He's trying gentle on the throttle. I mean, yeah, look, I've got. I'm not sure about that, Andy, because he's trying to hold on to the control of the car. Now, the thing is, there comes a point when the car is pointing on towards the track and you know you don't have control of this. You have to hold on to the brakes. And I think for him, he held on. It was a little bit too late on that one. Yeah, it's. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's very easy for us to pass judgment sat up here, isn't it? We're not in the sim. We're not out on track. Well, I've been in that situation myself where you get it wrong. It's even worse when it's your mistake, and it was. He hit the curb too hard. It launched the front of the car about 6 feet into the air. That was extraordinary. But when you've made that mistake, your first thought isn't always the safety of the cars around you, especially in sim racing, I have to say. That might have been different if that was a real car, but in sim racing, you know, all you want to do is get back on the track and get back on the track now and limit the amount of positions that you've lost. He'll have also been very aware there was a nice bit of clear track, wasn't there? He would have wanted to rejoin into that before the next group of cars came along, and unfortunately he did get on the throttle. That's never a good look, is it? And it's always going to end in tears with the car spinning around back into the track, and then that very same pack he was trying to stay ahead of, he ends up arriving broadside in the middle of the road right in front of them.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, it is very, very easy for us to pass judgment, and that's, you know, kind of why we're here. We give our own opinions on these incidents, and, you know, right or wrong, that's all they are. They're just our opinions of them. Obviously, it's up to race control to make decisions on that one. Two schools of thought with it, just to close that one out. One is obviously, I think it is going to be a penalty. I don't think there's any denying it's going to be a penalty. He didn't hold the brakes when rejoining the track. He didn't, and caused an accident with another car there, but in that position I think we'd all have likely done something very, very similar, tried to hold on. And you know, when the difference between you scoring huge points and potentially championship wins are on moments like that, you kind of have to roll the dice and take those luck. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that one, take the dust on that one. But just want to point out as well, Andy, looking back to the actual race itself, Michael Tauscher, 20 minutes into the race, has got a 4-second gap over Bastian Richter. Now, that is impressive, but the fact that Bastian Richter still holding his own in second place for the Unicorns of Love, I mean, some big results panning their way out.
Well, I asked the question to myself as much as anyone else before the race started. Could Michael Tauscher continue to lap 2.5 tenths of a second quicker than Bastian Richter every lap, as he did in qualifying? Well, the answer is no. He's about 6 tenths of a second a lap quicker than Bastian Richter. He is on another level at the moment, is Michael Tauscher. But this is what a little bit of confidence and a good run of form will do for you, because Michael was so fast, wasn't he, a week ago in that Coach Dave Academy 12 Hours of Kyle Army for the SimGrid VCO World Cup. And here he is in a different car, a different track and a different championship, but he's just got in the back of his mind that bit of confidence, that little voice telling him, yeah, you're good, you're fast, you can go out there and you can do that again. And that's exactly what he's doing. 4.1 second gap, and we're not even a third of the way into the race yet. We're not even close to getting into that pit window, and Michael Tauscher is making this race his own and really leaving everybody else to fight over the scraps. You make the point about Richter, though. He is 2.6 seconds clear at Boothby, so Porsche's looking strong here. It would be, on any other day, a dominant performance for Bastian Richter. It's just that Michael Tauscher is on that next level.
He absolutely is, and with 1 hour and 7 minutes left to go, we now turn our attention very shortly to pit stops and to strategy and how that is going to pan out into the race as well, because that is obviously one of the key points here in this 90-minute race, is that from 40 minutes from 40 minutes, the pit stop window opens and drivers are then free to come into that pit stop. But given that he's on such a pace already, I don't think Tauscher's got too much to worry about just now, because by the time that window opens, Andy, he'll have probably opened about 6 or 7 seconds over second place in Bastian Richter.
Yeah, and it's not like Tauscher is handing over to a really slow driver either, is it? Because Maciej Malinowski is also really quick, and he's going to be capable of running a strong pace as well. But you're right, the second half of the race could have a different look to the first. You know, if Malinowski isn't quite able to live with the pace that Tauscher is setting in this first part of the race, could that car sort of slip back into the clutches of the pack behind? We'll wait and see, I suppose. Vanko Dimitrov, meanwhile, here for Volante Racing, really didn't give Tinko van der Velde much choice about that, did he? He put himself on the inside and said, if you turn into this corner, we're going to have an accident, and Tinko made the right decision there, opened the steering up and let Dimitrov go through, but that is pretty much the definition, I'd say, of a block pass, and it was very effective.
That was a very forceful move. That was very aggressive as well. It was quite funny to watch there because it was a little bit much. Let's be honest. No contact made, but Tinko van der Velde didn't really have choice to do anything but it. But I mean, you've now got the fact that Tinko van der Velde now, that again, like at many other racetracks, it leaves them vulnerable. When you get overtaken by one car, it's never normally just one car because you've had to come off your line, and suddenly you've got all these cars that are just waiting and itching to get their way past you. But van der Velde gets an excellent run out of that corner, and for me, saying that the Mercedes weren't really having much in terms of pace, they're now up into 14th and 15th position, and they're making up quite a few places here. So maybe they can look into to bolstering on that, trying to get themselves into the top 10. But still, I think that's it's quite unlikely. But I mean, all hell's breaking off behind because you've got Tinko van der Velde trying to get attacked here by Schwertz in the number 14. We've got another penalty coming in here. The cars 187 and 100, the incident between them on lap 2 is a 5-second penalty to car 100 for avoidable contact. So that's the turn 1 Aston Martin of Andre Michel and Marcel Villar that gets the 5-second penalty for avoidable contact, and that was on the 187 on lap 2. So that is, of course, the Tauro of Leslie Oliphant that the contact was with. But, Ante, an hour ago, it's been a solid start to the race. It's been a calm start to the race for the majority of drivers. Was this what you thought we were going to see tonight?
Yes and no. Certainly the positions that we've got towards the front of the field pretty much as I would have predicted, but yeah, you're right, a pretty calm start to the race. The odd incident, which I guess is inevitable really, the biggest one being that one for Jonas Savalainen and Tinko van der Velde at the chicane. How impressive, by the way, is it that Tinko is still running in 16th place? Yes, the car looks wounded and maybe a bit slower than it was before, but the fact he's still going after that impact is pretty impressive. But pretty much your typical Nurburgring race this. Now that everyone has settled into position, they're finding that it's not the easiest of places to overtake. You've got one or two sort of obvious places, the first corner being by far the best of those, but then the chicane at the end of the lap, because we were using this faster version of the chicane. I know the drivers enjoy it more because it's a bit faster, it's a bit more flowing, but it unfortunately does take away another good overtaking chance because you're now not doing as much braking into there as you would be on the tighter version. And as I say that, Igor Ogrodnikov gets into the side of Novakovsky. I was about to say he's going to prove me wrong by making a clean pass at the chicane. That didn't happen. Ogrodnikov is rejoining. Novakovsky is still somewhere in the weeds trying to find himself back onto the track, and that was never going to work. The very point I was making there, David, is that it's a lot harder to overtake at this version of the chicane than it is the tighter one, and that was a great example of why. Meanwhile, it's all changed for third place as well.
Well, that was an uneventful few corners there, really. That was nothing to write home about. Igor Ogrodnikov, once again, deciding... I really don't understand what goes on through Igor, because every time I almost want to bring up that conversation about how, I'm always having to go at Igor for being impatient and grumpy, and about 5 laps later he proves me absolutely right. But I mean, what a great move for James Parker to get that car round George Boothby. George is going to be very, very frustrated with that one, and not only that, I mean, that's quite a considerable move that's been done on Boothby there, because that now allows James Parker to try and bring down that gap to Bastian Richter. So Richter has spent the past 14 laps breathing a bit of a sigh of relief because he knows that Boothby just hasn't had the pace. but now he's got the Aston Martin of James Parker. The only respite that he's got there is that we're going to see pit stops very, very soon there. So, yeah, what do we think about Andy about Igor Ogrodnikov then? What is the outcome from that? What would your outcome from that be?
I think my outcome of that is that it's you don't like to see it, but you also sort of expect to see it, don't you? As soon as he showed his nose to the inside there, I knew he wasn't going to back out of it, but I also knew that he needed to back out of it because it wasn't going to work, and yeah, that ended up being the case. Bit of a mistake there for Max Vollmuth. Look, and there's going to be almost a bit more argy-bargy there because Sasha Glatter goes up the inside in the Black Hawk Racing Aston Martin, levers through into 6th place, and now here comes the Porsche look of Nicholas Huben, which can't actually drag fully past. And so just the 1 place lost for Vollmuth. Incident between cars 36 and 166, by the way. The investigation's been completed, and the evaluation is that it's a drive-through for car 166, and that is that car we were discussing earlier on. The 166 is the Beto Sim Racing Aston Martin of Tom Rea and Alex Radizzi. I think I just saw actually Radizzi having a spin in the background a couple of laps ago too. So double punishment for them, I'm afraid, with a penalty now also on the way. But yes, Ogrodnikov and contact do seem to rather go hand in hand sometimes, don't they? And yeah, that move, it was never on, really, was it?
No, it wasn't. That's the polite way of putting it. And this is what we were joking about before, was the fact that the last person you want to see behind you is Igor Ogrodnikov, because you don't know what Igor you're going to get. Do you get calm, collected Igor of lately, where he is, measured and bides his time, and that's pretty much what we were seeing there. So I think Igor will catch a replay of it, but it maybe just caught out by the car in front of him and couldn't react in time. We'll certainly have another look at it, but we need to get the community in on this. We need to get some memes made up of Igor Ogrodnikov in a rear view mirror and some hard bass intensifying as he gets closer. But this is Ogrodnikov then, and the replay of Nowakowski. This is the right hander then, the run up the hill after Advan Bogen, and tries to make a move up the inside. It's never going to work. Yeah, that's on Ogrodnikov every single day of the week. There was no room there. He jumped over the curb. It was an obvious thing that was going to happen there. Keeps it planted in, and yeah, he's going to get a penalty, and absolutely deserved on that one. It's clear cut, and it's frustrating to see because he's so much better than that.
He can be, certainly. I've seen him put in some really impressive stints in recent time, but yeah, this, unfortunately, not one of them. But he sort of half showed his nose and then kind of politely asked that Nowakowski let him through. And when Nowakowski didn't let him through, he should have backed out of it. But yeah, once you've sort of got that far into the corner, you're not going to be able to avoid the contact in the end. Anyway, Nicholas Huben here we were following in the Unicorns of Love Porsche. We instead go back to Leonardo Porco, who, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, David, is almost back into the top 20. This car was stationary in the gravel halfway around the first lap and fell right to the back of the pack. We haven't seen much of him, but this has been a really impressive comeback drive.
It really has, and Porco confirmed then for a top 10 finish. That's what I'm thinking at this race, or at this rate even. And just to say that, he almost gets taken by Artur Sarnacki there in the 101. The two of them, though, trying to keep their way down and keep themselves out of trouble, trying to catch up to the 112 of Manos Gerardis there in the McLaren. But yeah, under an hour left to go, and yeah, a decent race so far. It's all calming down, he says, with the tongue in cheek. But Michael Tauscher still out in the lead of this race and still firing in some very, very fast lap times, 153.9 and 5 seconds ahead of Bastian Richter. But the gap between James Parker and Bastian Richter, I think, is starting to come down very, very slightly now, just 2.7 seconds. But yeah. Oh, and what's happened to Bastian Richter? Bastian Richter fallen off the scale, and has Richter disconnected?
I think he must have done. I just opened up my live timing screen to compare their sector times, and then I realised he disappeared. So disconnect then for the Porsche that was in second place, and another example of how things that are completely out of your control can just take you out of contention. Bastian had put in a really solid stint. He was matching the pace of James Parker, who was chasing him down, and unfortunately that is second place now, gone completely from their grasp. Second place and a potential of 42 championship points if they could have stayed there to the end. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah, really, really is. That's a difficult one to stomach. But what can you say? I mean, it's the follow-on from the World Cup incident at the weekend, disconnecting twice, the bizarre pit bug that they suffered as well, and through on the inside though, trying to make some sort of sunshine here is Igor Gorodnikov on the inside of Chris Melbourne. I don't know how long that's going to be. I've got no doubt that race control are going to be furiously writing up some notes there, but yeah, it's a difficult one. Obviously, great news for like James Parker and George Boothby, that moves them further up the order, but every one of those drivers would rather have Bastian Richter on the grid rather than losing them like this.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it a little bit hollow, doesn't it? I guess if you end up on the podium now, you want to be on the podium because you beat those that were the fastest on that day. But, I've made this point a few times. This is exactly the same as a mechanical failure on a real car. It's not really something the drivers have done wrong. It's just bad luck, and that is and should always be an element of motorsport, in my opinion. Tinko van der Velde, though, has benefited from that. He's moved into 15th place now, but he's got Lasse Schwert going right round the outside. So the inside move doesn't work at the chicane. We've seen that demonstrated already. I'm not convinced the outside is any better, and that, I'm afraid, is what you get, because he gets elbowed sideways there by Villard in the 100, who's already got a 5-second penalty for contact earlier on, and now the 14 Porsche for Unicorns of Love is going to rejoin a long, long, long way down the order. That's 24th place now for Lasse Schwert, who, I mean, it was an ambitious initial attempt at the chicane. The momentum that cost him then put him under attack into the hairpin, but that, unfortunately, still didn't need to happen, did it?
I think ambitious, though, it's a phrase that we use way too much in these races right now. We see a lot of moves earlier on where it's being sized up lap after lap, where a driver's just inching forward and just prodding and poking at the car in front, trying to have a look, and then decides to send it down. But these lunges are just they're going to be getting absolutely annihilated for race control. For me, I don't think that move was ever on. Oh, and there you go, a penalty for Igor Gorodnikov. Drive-through penalty. Brace yourself in YouTube chat. It's all going to kick off. Drive-through for car 41, and that means that Bischoff in the 991 Ferrari is going to move up into the top 10 then. So that is the least surprising thing I think we've seen from this race so far. I'm not that surprised to hear that, if I'm honest, but quick work there by the race stewards to get that clarified for us, and as you said, that will move Bischoff back into the top 10 now after his dramas earlier on. Novakovsky will inherit 13th place though, and of course he was the driver that was on the receiving end of Ogorodnikov's rather exuberant attempt to overtake at the chicane. So drive-through pending then for him. In fact, he's in now serving it, so Ogorodnikov brings the Simware Pro Aston Martin down the pit lane, and we focus on the fight for third place because George Boothby has now re-inherited a podium place because of Bastian Richter's disconnect, but that third place is under threat, isn't it? Giuseppe Montalbano is all over him now. This Omega G Performance Bentley that was so cruelly denied a win at Misano. I say cruelly denied, they got a penalty for hitting a back marker. They still ended up third, but they had such a big lead at Misano, and they really haven't been able to recapture that magic ever since, have they? A 9th place at Kyalami, only 14th last time at Bathurst, but here they're back on the pace and they can sniff a second podium of the season. They certainly can. It's amazing how quickly that momentum can just disappear from a season, and that energy. It's almost like one good result feeds another result as well, and they keep going until basically your good times run dry. But Montalbano here, let's not forget that was a cracking qualifying performance. Got that car way above where it deserved to be. That Bentley is an absolute brute round here and really does struggle. And through this opening stint is doing a cracking job of really making a nuisance of himself. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because that Bentley, you know. You look at Chris Melbourne down in 8th position as well, and the fact that he's fighting with the likes of Jan Willem van Ommen and Marco Bischoff, but Montalbano, you wouldn't put it past him absolutely taking this position from Boothby. He looks like he's in the stronger car right now, and if he can get clear of Boothby, who knows where that Bentley can go.
Yeah, the Bentley is carrying 15 kilos less ballast through the BOP. The McLaren carrying 30 kilos, the Bentley just 15. That will be helping a little bit, but actually, as much as I sort of predicted that Porsche would go well here and that the front-engine cars might struggle, the Bentley has done well this season at all of the circuits I didn't think it would do. Misano, tight, technical, all 90 degree, 180 degree first, second gear corners. That should be a nightmare circuit for the Bentley, and yet it dominated, absolutely dominated. It was only that penalty that robbed them of winning by maybe 30 seconds or so. And again here at the Nurburgring, a tight, technical circuit. That first sector looks like hell on earth for a Bentley driver, and yet here is Montalbano in 4th place. So Omega G Performance are doing something really special in this Bentley Continental GT3, and they're getting pace out of it at circuits they probably shouldn't be. The trouble is they haven't then maximised the opportunities at tracks that should suit the cars. So when it comes to putting together a full championship campaign, perhaps work to be done. But this is really impressive stuff.
Yeah, it really is, and you know, like you say, work to be done on the consistency part of it. But the fact that they're able to get these results in on tracks that they really have no right with that car to be getting shows what a strong pairing that they have in that 340 Omega E-Racing team of Montalbano and Karim Matea. So we'll wait with bated breath to see what Karim can do if he has got joint pace through there. But without further ado then, 50 minutes left to go. Oh, and that was a big drift round that final corner there from Montalbano there, but 50 minutes left to go in the race. The pit window has opened then. 40 minutes have expired in the or elapsed rather in the race, and the pit window is now open so cars can jump in. Maximilian Walmuth is the first car to do so. But this is what I was saying about how it should be done. Now Montalbano looks to have, and I say looks to have because we wait to see what actually happens here, but looks to have the faster car over the car in 3rd place there of George Boothby. But what he's doing is he's staying behind him, he's measuring him out, he's looking to see where George is weak and where he could potentially make a move. He's not just deciding to send it from 300 metres away on every single turn. And that is how it should be done. Now, watch this all go horribly wrong, and we see the Bentley of Montalbano go flying into Boothby, but Montalbano doing a great job there of stalking Boothby and really applying the pressure on that McLaren.
Yes, but this is the same Giuseppe Montalbano that dived up the inside of 3 other cars at turn 1 and picked up 3 places and very nearly took George Boothby out at that first corner on lap 1, I seem to recall. But yes, I take your point. He has since then had a very, very calm and mature drive, actually, and I think is quicker than Boothby. Just putting my team manager's hat on for a second, if I were Boothby, I would be screaming at the team to let me pit early because he's got a very quick co-driver to hand over to, Niels van der Kerkelt. Boothby clearly is struggling a bit now late in the stint. That ballast won't be helping him, and also they need to try and cover off the potential for an undercut here for the Omega G Performance team. Now neither of them are pitted this time typically, but the last thing they want is for Montalbano to pit a lap earlier than Boothby, because that extra lap in clean air could be enough for the Bentley to leapfrog ahead. So for several reasons here, I think it's in Boothby's best interest to pit sooner rather than later.
Well, we'll wait and see how that one pans out. So we've got lap traffic coming out into the path of 3rd and 4th place there, and Boothby dropping away a little bit by about half a second over James Parker then, with 47 minutes left to go in the race. This is Yegor Gorodnikov then on the recovery, charging again. Remember, he's got to do a pit stop still as well. That drive-through was just a drive-through, and that sends him all the way down into 16th place. So realistically, he is going to be fighting tooth and nail just to get Andy back into that top 10.
Yeah, that's going to be a tall order, isn't it? But this is a good team, we know that, and he'll be handing over to Alexander Novikov, who again is no slouch. So can they get back into the points? Yeah, probably. I would give them some points out of this one. Remember, the top 20 finishers score points, but you score single-figure points if you're outside the top 15. So if you're a championship hopeful, which there's no doubt this team are, they are currently up there in 5th place in the championship, remember. You don't really want to be finishing somewhere down around 15th or 16th place, so this might end up being a race they have to almost write off a little bit and hope that they can fight back in 2 weeks' time. More penalties on the way, I'm informed, by the way, as we get more and more cars starting to come in and serve these pit stops. You can see on the timing tower, by the way, an orange number 1 next to a driver's name means they haven't pitted yet. A green block means that they are either in the process of pitting or they have completed their mandatory stop. Drive-through for car 101, that's the PWSR Alpha Ferrari of, who was in that? It's Artur Czarnecki, I think, isn't it, that was in the car for the first stint. Anyway, drive-through for them after avoidable contact with car 17. That was the Pulse SimSport Ferrari, so another drive-through to be served. And as you make the point, David, they can't make that their mandatory stop. They have to come in, serve the drive-through, and then subsequently come back in for the driver change.
Yeah, just watching the gap now between Boothby and Parker, 2nd and 3rd place. That is opening up at a rate of knots now. That's an alarming gap that is starting to open up there, because that was 3.1 seconds. So they're losing about, half a second a lap over at 2nd place there. So that really takes out any sort of strategic call on that note there. I'm also seeing that Michael Tauscher, though, 1:53.9, that's still 0.3 of a second faster than James Parker in 2nd place there. So Parker 9 seconds behind your race leader. Then George Boothby in UKOG 47 car in 3rd place. It's Giuseppe Montalbano in the Bentley in 4th position. Sasha Glatter doing a decent stealthy job of getting up into 5th position there. That also means that Chris Melbourne in 6th position. Mikhail Milvakowski, despite that earlier contact, in the 125 in 7th. 8th place for Vanko Dimitrov. 9th place for Tinko van der Velde in the Lamborghini. Manas Gerardis in 10th position. 45 minutes left to go. We've got 4 minutes 40 left in the pit window as well, and your top 4 all have to pit right now.
Yes, and as I confidently predicted, George Boothby really needed to pit early because he was clearly losing time to the car behind. Oh wait, he's pulling away again now from Giuseppe Montalbano, so forget everything I said about them needing an early pit stop. They're clearly quite happy where they are at the moment. Sheldon Muscat here in the GT Omega RPM Esports Bentley, which is not enjoying quite the same performance as the other GT Omega Bentley, heads into the final turn, 27th for them. Those that haven't pitted yet, though, those race leaders in particular, they're starting to run into another problem now, aren't they? Because those that have pitted are coming out on track in and around that lead group. So by staying out later, you actually run the risk now of running into some traffic, don't you? You can see Boothby and Montalbano just ahead of this group. So these cars have gone a lap down temporarily, but they are potentially on fresher tyres. Certainly they've got fresher drivers in the cars, and they're actually catching up, I think, to those lead lap cars ahead.
Yeah, Tauscher is in the middle of a pack of traffic right now. The 17 and the 16.9. That's the Space Pace and Beetle SimRacing.de and the Pulse SimSport 17. But James Parker is in absolute clear air right now, and just as I say that, Tauscher's already dispatched the 3 cars that were behind him there, so no panic to any case whatsoever there for the Porsche. The gap came down by about 0.2 of a second, but you can almost guarantee that he will just ratchet the pace back up and keep things going there. This has been an absolute masterclass for Michael Tauscher. This is really, if any race summed up the Sprint Cup season for Random Pastable, it would be this Nurburgring race, because they've looked flawless. They've looked like there's nobody that comes even close to matching them, both in qualifying pace and in race trim as well.
Yeah, it's been a flawless performance so far, hasn't it? And with Bastian Richter's disconnect, they're now nearly 9 seconds clear of their opposition. But, Bastian... Oh, mind you, that nearly went wrong, didn't it? Michael Tauscher with either a late decision to pit or just maybe carried a bit too much speed out of the chicane. I don't know, but that could have gone a little bit wrong, couldn't it, if he'd have lost control coming into the pits. He makes his mandatory pit stop now, though. I expect Parker, Boothby and Montalbano to probably be pitting fairly shortly. Yeah, Parker is heading in because that pit window is not going to be open for much longer. They could stretch it one more lap, though, couldn't they? That's exactly what George Boothby is doing, but the other 3 in that top 4 all pitting now.
Just looking at the lap times coming in from the cars that have already pitted, and I think that the pace is really falling away from this track right now, because we're now into the 154s. Now, granted that a lot of the cars are on their first lap out here, but I'm not seeing the same sort of pace that we had earlier on. Now, I've got no doubt that the top 4 will come back in and they'll be back into the 153s. But yeah, it is starting to cool down a little bit here, and you think hopefully as the track cools down, a little bit more pace will come into these tires and these other drivers in the final 40 minutes of this race here.
Yeah, and it will just take a couple of laps to get the pressures and the temperatures where you need them to be. These cars on ACC are very temperature sensitive when it comes to tyre grip, so yeah, that'll just give them a couple of laps of slightly out of control driving maybe, and some cars handle that better than others as well, so this is a good opportunity. If you've got a car that switches on pretty quickly on cold tyres, you could gain a bit more time. So now everyone's sort of stood around waiting for one more driver to pit, and that is this man, George Boothby, on the main part of your screen. On the inset you can see Maciej Malinovski now at the wheel of the 992 random pasta bowl Porsche that we expect to re-inherit the lead once Boothby pits. Parker is out in second with Montalbano in third. Now that hasn't updated, has it then, with the second drivers in those cars? So we'll get to the bottom of that in a moment. It should be Killian Ryan Meenan in the 888. Of course, it won't update until the end sector 1, and it is quite a long first sector here, isn't it, the Nurburgring? It stretches around probably more than a third of the lap, so that will, and indeed is now, starting to update. So that's one less thing to confuse me, David.
Oh, that's okay. I've got plenty more that'll even confuse me, so don't worry about that. But 40 minutes left to go then on this 4th round here of the SimGrid Sprint Cup. And it's live coverage with myself, David Christie, and Andy McEwan. As always, if you enjoy what you're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, as always, if you want to hit that like and subscribe button here on YouTube, and we will gladly keep you up to date with all of our amazing racing action that we offer here at SimGrid. As always, you can also head over to the SimGrid and get involved in our daily races and championships as well. And a huge thank you to our commercial partners, as always, Coach Dave Academy and to Thrustmaster. Some exciting revelations this week, Andy, from our partner Thrustmaster. They're getting a lot of buzz. They've released their development roadmap for the year ahead, and they've finally got everybody talking with their much anticipated foray into direct drive wheels.
Yeah, that's interesting news, isn't it? I know you're a Logitech fan, so I know you've been following that story and will continue to do so over the next few months very, very closely indeed. Meanwhile, look at what's happening out on track, because Karim Matea, who's now taken over this Omega G Performance Bentley, is almost a full, in fact more than a full second adrift, I think, of the 47 McLaren. The 47 McLaren should now have Niels van der Kekelt at the wheel. That will update at the end of the first sector, but we did expect that McLaren to be a little bit closer to the front end, or even maybe behind this Bentley, once the pit cycle had been completed. But that was not how it's worked, is it? Because Matea here is some way behind the McLaren.
Yeah, he really, really is. But this is the thing as well. So we've got a yellow flag for the number 66, 166. And that is the Beto Sim Racing and TF Racing cars that came into a little bit of fisticuffs earlier on. That's Saknis in the 112 and Alex Radici in the 166. So we'll get an idea of what happened between them. But Yeah, the problem with the pit stops as well is that you come in with the best of intentions, Andy, and quite often you can really, really struggle. I mean, I think Karim Mattea has really struggled on that outlap doing a 2:53, where everyone else has been doing 2:50s for their outlap. So that's a good 3-4 seconds out on that one, as we see George Boothby dropping down the order, thankfully, after his eventual pit stop coming through on the timing screens there. But with the pit stops, obviously you have to time it, because it might look good for you to stay out, but then you've got to think about where you're going to be coming out again as we get lap traffic cycling through this, and some teams just do that a little bit better than others. And I think that Maciej Malinowski and that 992 random pass the ball team, they've done that to perfection, because they have got absolutely no one anywhere near them right now.
No, they haven't. Here is... now, that's a hip and shoulder, which then becomes almost... No, surely not an overtake. Well, maybe, hang on. To you. No, after you. Oh, and then there's a point from the Bentley, which spins them both out completely. I think that's the other Omega G Bentley, isn't it? I think they just got bored of watching the other two sort of refusing to decide and settle that battle between themselves, and decided to settle it themselves. That's one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen.
Oh my god, so you know how we joke about... I thought that was in a replay again, but the Bentley just went flying around the outside of that McLaren there. You know how we joke about the Bentley being the Boatley, and it's a luxury yacht? Well, that is the literal equivalent of a ship, one of those foghorns that the ships have. Just as the two of them are squabbling between themselves, the Bentley's just come up behind it going and just booted the pair of them out the way. I absolutely love that. It's not the best for racing etiquette, but my god, is it entertaining. So Sheldon Muscat, you've got to be fair, I mean, Sheldon's had a season to forget, and after that early incident where he got so rudely escorted to the side, I'm okay with Sheldon doing that. That's race control will absolutely haul him over the coals. I've got no doubt about that. But you go for it, Sheldon. You take whatever pleasure you can out of this race. Meanwhile, 35 minutes left to go, and it is looking all quiet on the front for Maciej Malinowski. 1:53.736 that last lap round. 9.4 seconds is the gap he's got over Killian Ryan in the 888. Niels van de Kekkel in third place for the UK OG47 team. And as you said, I mean, he's doing a cracking job of holding on, but he's not doing the sort of pace you would think, because Karim Mattea in the Bentley just did a 1:54.0, fastest lap for him, and that gap now down to 3 seconds. So any advantage that the pit stops had has now well and truly been lost.
Yes, and we did sort of touch on this earlier on, didn't we, that the second half of the race can often have a very different look to it than the first, because the pace of the drivers that get into these cars for Stint 2 is often different to those that were in for Stint 1. So a car that was pulling away from another car through the first 45 minutes might then get caught again through the second half of the race, and that makes for fascinating racing. Florian Durkop here is trying to dig himself out of a hole that wasn't really of his or the team's making, was it? Because this car, remember, in the hands of Lachey Swert, got tipped into a spin at the final corner before the pit stop. So Durkop trying now to take 27th place away here from the 112 McLaren, and it looks as though he's going to get past Giannis Sagnis into turn 1. Yes, he does. Porsche runs a bit wide though, so the McLaren comes straight back again. Is there still an overlap into turn 2? There is, but in fairness there to Sagnis, he's not going to let this place go. It may only be 27th place, and I'm fairly sure the Porsche is the quicker of the two, but he's going to put up a stern fight nonetheless. This time though, I think Florian's got the move made. Yes, he has, through turn 3. There's the exit turn 4 out of the Mercedes arena. He's into 27th place. Disappointing always, isn't it, to be fighting for 27th place, but it can still be good fun. The battling up and down the field is intense, whether it's for first or 21st, isn't it?
It really is, and it makes it a little bit easier to deal with, because you kind of forget that you're down in 27th place, because you're too busy fighting for whatever scraps that you can get. And it's always a difficult one, isn't it, to get over to our spectators and to our viewers, the fact that, you know, 27th place, it sounds horrible, and for the most part it usually is a horrible result. But when you've got the skill level of the drivers and the entire top split field that we have here, 27th place is still light years ahead of the majority of sim racing pace. It takes... I wouldn't even qualify for this top split. I wouldn't even qualify for like the third or fourth split if that was the case on here. Such is the level of ability that goes on in these races here, as Alex Radici was getting a little bit close there to the back end of Mancini there in the 99 Bentley. That was a little bit worrying there. But yeah, look... when you're in that position, when you're as far down as Durkop is in that Porsche, having a car in front of you just keeps that momentum going. It gives you the motivation to keep fighting and to keep pushing, because at the end of the day, that's the difference, is the fact that you'll get some cars that just decide to give up, or they'll just decide, right, I'm just going to put it in the pits and that's our race done. Whereas you get some of them, who knows what's going to happen in the next 30 minutes. We've seen too many races, Andy, where the entire race is turned completely upside down with disconnects and crashes and 10 cars going out. That could be the difference between them, doing well or actually getting points out of this, right?
Well, I mean, Leonardo Porco is the great example of that. He's 14th now. He's well in the points, despite a lap 1 off, which saw him fall right to plumb last. So, yeah, absolutely. Even if things aren't going to plan and you're a long way down the order, don't give up, because you could still get yourself... There's 31.5 minutes left in this race. A lot can happen in 31.5 minutes. Plus, as we've said, you might still have a few good battles, and you've got to remember, I think, sometimes why you got into this sim racing business in the first place. It's because it's fun, it's because you enjoy racing against others of a similar pace to you, and so, okay, maybe you're not going to win the race or score any big points, but if you're still going to get even a scrap of enjoyment out of it, then it surely is worth continuing. We're getting more than a scrap of enjoyment, though, out of watching some of these battles. This is, in fact, Leonardo Porco just ahead of these two. This is Lucas Kritzer in the Lamborghini, under pressure from Alexander Novikov, who goes to the outside line. There's contact, there's more contact, there's even maybe another bit of contact as they come off the corner, but actually Kritzer manages to fend him off, and Alexander Novikov there, I don't know what he was trying to do. You can't drive through the Lamborghini. He was already alongside on the outside line, and he was doing everything he could there to try and make that move stick. It didn't, though, and so the Lamborghini stays ahead.
It's attention seeking, I think, there, Andy. He's just trying to signal that he wants to make the move, but he's not actually able to make the move. So he's, he'll be drawing up plans and trying to make that one stick. Here's Dan King, though, for Dalking Community on the back of Felix Repair there, and this is the battle of the Aston Martins then for 6th and 7th place. Cracking little battle that we've got going on here. I love the fact that everyone in the YouTube chat is engaging with the fun times, the mockery of the Bentley, and its pristine boat-like interior with the full mahogany wood finish and fully stocked minibar. I just love the idea of that. Getting a little butler to help you with traction control and ABS. It's a lovely little fantasy nonetheless, but less than half an hour left to go, and Masek Malinowski currently living out his fantasy of being 11 seconds ahead of Killian Ryan Meenan, and Niels van de Kekelt a further 7 seconds down the road as well. So it is looking very, very good so far for the 992 Random Passable, and just behind the Lamborghini of Lucas Kreuzer there, that was, I believe, the 41 of Alexander Novikov, did exactly what Igor Ogorodnikov did about 10 laps ago. So Novikov obviously not watching what his teammates been doing, because you would have thought that the memo had got passed, don't cut the curb on that final chicane.
Yeah, I think frustration starting to get the better of them, perhaps. Novikov knows they're going to be losing lots and lots of points here to those that are ahead of them in the championship. The top two in the championship, remember, are car 992, who are leading, and 47, who are third. So it's a bad day at the office for Simware Pro. Also not a great day for Gripax Engineering, the number 11 car, which has had a first and a second place finish in 2 of the 3 races earlier this season. They've also had an off, remember. This is the fight for 10th place there. Marcel Fusey in the Sidemax Motorsports, Motorworks, I should say. Mercedes-Benz, the AMG GT3 in that 10th place, but Sasha Glatter also going in alone in this race, remember. So Sasha has served a 15-second solo driver penalty in the pit lane and is still on course potentially for a top 10 if that number 81 Aston Martin can find a way ahead of the Mercedes, and that ain't going to be easy.
It really isn't, and fair play to Marcel Fouzy, because all race I've been saying how gutted I've been to see the Mercedes struggling for pace, and they're doing a decent job. I mean, Fouzy up into the top 10, but you do get the impression is that Aston is squirreling under braking. The weight transfer into that chicane is horrendous. There's that too much weight goes to the front wheels, and the car just jinks on its back axis from left to right, and he's trying to make himself known, but in all honesty, Marcel Fouzy is away, and it's going to be at least 2 more laps before he is all over the back of him again. But this is Alexander Novikov then, still trying to get onto the back of Lucas Kreuzer here, trying to make this move stick, but Kreuzer did a great job in that Lamborghini. And again, Novikov, you're seeing the frustration here, Andy, as you just said there. He tries to make a move stick, but I've got a feeling this has got another drive-through written all over it.
Yeah, because he's clearly the quicker of the two, isn't he? He keeps making mistakes and dropping back, and then within a lap, he's right back on the rear diffuser of the Lamborghini. I can see where he's gaining a lot of that time is in a straight line. You can see from that onboard view there that the Aston Martin of Novikov was really reeling Kreuzer in down the start-finish line, but the start-finish straight, I should say, but that straight was about 100 metres too short, wasn't it? And he just couldn't quite position himself into the braking zone to make the move stick. But yeah, double frustration here for Novikov really, because not only is he stuck down in 16th, unable to get 15th place away, but Leonardo Porco is only a second up the road, so that's 14th that he could get if only he could break through the defences of Kreuzer in the Lamborghini. And yeah, you do have to say that maybe there's a potential for this one to end badly if the frustration gets the better of him. He needs to concentrate, I think, does Novikov, on maximising the parts of the circuit where he's strong. If you know you've got an edge down the start-finish straight, make sure you come off that final corner as clean as possible and carry an extra mile an hour or so maybe down this straight to attack into turn 1, but he's just a bit too scrappy for that at the moment.
I was just about to say, actually, you said a couple of laps ago, Andy, that you can't just drive through the Lamborghini, and I was about to say the SimGrid.pro team are just like, hold my beer. So we'll see how that one pans out. But Dan King all over the back of Felix Rupert here, and Felix Rupert not really doing anything. Oh my goodness me! I can feel the frustration here on that Aston Martin of Novikov. That is, I've got a horrible feeling, and I really hope it doesn't happen. But I hope that Novikov just doesn't lose patience and sends Kreuzer to the shadow realm. It's a possibility at this point. 25 minutes left to go, and yeah, you just get the feeling that Novikov is really starting to lose his patience now and trying to send it every possible moment. But Dan King doing the opposite, actually, really hunting down Felix Rupert. And we saw this early on with the Aston Martin on the McLaren, where lap after lap it's just staying within that 2/3 of a second gap, and really trying to prod and poke the car in front and see where it's vulnerable and see where the opportunities are. And that's the sort of attacking racing and 3000 IQ strategy that I like to see here. But 25 minutes left to go. Malinowski is absolutely checked out right now, isn't he?
He has, hasn't he? That is a big old gap now over Killian Ryan-Meenan, who in turn looks pretty safe in second. Third place, though, well and truly up for grabs here, because Karim Matea has caught, and he's now challenging Niels van der Kekelt for this third position. Now, where is the Bentley stronger than the Mercedes? When it was Montalbano in the Bentley and Boothby in the McLaren, Montalbano couldn't find a way through, despite being stuck behind the McLaren literally since the drop of the green flag. Montalbano spent about 45 minutes staring at that very attractive rear end, I must say, of the McLaren 720S, and I fear that maybe Matea is going to be in for a similar fate here, because he's running wide through turn 2 and loses a lot of time, actually, so you can now barely see the McLaren, such is the advantage that van der Kekelt had there. But the trouble here, I think, for Matea is that Bentley just isn't any quicker than the McLaren down the pit straight, and if you're not quicker down that pit straight, it's very, very hard to engineer an overtake, isn't it? Here we go then, David, over to you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, place your bets. The table is open. Is it going to be a turn 1 punt? Novikov moves to the outside. Is there going to be contact into turn 1? Novikov's going to try and go around the outside. It's never going to work. Lamborghini's going to have the inside drawing. Well, there we go. That was rather predictable. But, to be fair, there was no contact there. So that was great racing from Lucas Kreuzer and Novikov. But, again, the aggression is starting to ramp up. The frustration and temper is starting to ramp up as well. I do get the inevitable feeling that it is just a matter of time with these two. But Kreuzer, if you wanted to do exhibition defensive driving, that is exactly what you need to do. You need to put that Lamborghini right on the apex of every corner, make it as wide as possible, hang the car out behind you to dry, and let them do all of the work here. But I don't know about you, Andy. You just get that feeling, don't you, that it is just a matter of time with Novikov, that he's either going to make a sensational pass, and if he does, we will give him every single credit under the sun. But I think from what we're seeing just now, what's more likely is contact between these two.
Well, but you can see why he's getting frustrated, because he's tried everything, and fair play to him. He has tried the inside, he's tried the outside, he's tried moves at several different corners on the circuit, all of them so far, touch wood, clean, and he still can't get through. And when you're that much quicker than someone who is stubbornly and brilliantly defending the position, as Lucas Kreuzer is doing, that is just the most frustrating thing in the world if you are Alexander Novikov in this situation. This is where the move needs to start, though, with a good run through the chicane, and a good run through the chicane is not what Alexander Novikov has. He was too late on the brakes. He's just sort of stabbing at the back of the Lamborghini, isn't he, at every opportunity, rather than thinking it through and building the momentum for a part of the circuit where he's stronger.
I'm just watching this as well. Porco has been told in the 728 to give the position back to the 96 of Lucas Kreuzer for a push to pass. So that is going to add a little bit of spiciness to the mix as well, as Carbon Sim Sport has been... That was rather unceremoniously pushed out the way there, and that is not the best to see for Damien Pavlos there in the 7. What a fall from grace has been for the Carbon Sim Sport team, as we see Alex Radici firing up the inside, and that's that's a textbook block pass. I'm not keen on seeing them, but it gets the job done, but it's not the nicest of ways, is it?
No, it's not. It's a way of passing that sometimes you have to resort to, but you'd always rather do a little bit more cleanly than that. Also just got some notification there that Sheldon Muscat is being given a 10-second penalty. That's for the contact, 2 bits of contact that he had with 2 different cars at the final corner. Personally, I prefer to see that as him just sort of stepping in to settle their dispute. I don't think he did anything wrong, but yes, the stewards, I think, perhaps reasonably disagreeing with me there. 26th place for him. 15th place, though, for Alexander Novikov, and there is no obvious damage on the front of the 41 car. There's no obvious damage on the back of the Lamborghini, so dare I say it, David, I think this might have been a clean pass after all.
Well, like said, we'll give all the credit then. Novikov gets the move done, and to be honest, once that's done, you can't see them looking back because they had the pace. They just couldn't find a way past that number 96. So yeah, job done. Great move from Alexander Novikov, and great position for SimWare.pro. They need that position. They need to get points. They've got 20 minutes. There's nothing stopping them making a charge for, say, catching up to 13th or 14th position.
No, I think that's definitely possible, isn't it? Here is the battle for third, which has been sort of threatening to burst into life for the last few minutes, but Karim Matea, having made that little mistake at turn 2 a few laps ago, is still in the process of trying to get back on the tail of Niels van der Kakelt here in the McLaren. Really important here for both of these teams to try and get this podium place. The 47 car has an advantage in the championship over the 340, but not a massive one actually. It's the 340 car is on 71 points as opposed to 107 for the championship leaders Random Pastable and 98 for the number 47 McLaren ahead of them. So they could do with getting ahead of the McLaren, that's for sure, but not necessarily worth taking a huge risk here. We still, of course, have 18.5 minutes to go as well, so tyre management now starts to become a key factor. And it was, wasn't it, David, in the second half of that first stint that George Boothby really seemed to be struggling. So is that heavier McLaren going to start working its tyres a little bit harder? I did see someone in YouTube chat earlier on actually reminding us that the Bentley, despite its enormous size, is actually the lightest car on the grid, and that will help with tyre management.
Yeah, obviously living in opposite lands, but I mean that is a great point about the Bentley being so light, because obviously it has the silhouette, but it doesn't mean that it's got all the weight of the road-going version of that car. It does look an intimidatingly wide and big car. The last car that I remember looking that big, was it not the BMW? Was it not the M8? That was the big, wide, massive GT3 monster, and that did the rounds as well. Being light on the tyres will have huge implications towards the final 10 minutes. You're absolutely spot on when we saw George Boothby really struggling to get any sort of traction. Was to see a 5-second penalty for Leonardo Porco. So that's for not returning the place there, and that's going to cost him at least 2 positions from that. So we'll see how that one pans out. But yeah, look, the Bentley does just need to keep its head down, keep itself behind the McLaren right now, and it's got the grunt. It has the straight line speed. So yeah, I think that position will come, and they just need to let it happen naturally.
It's always harder though, isn't it, when you're aware that you are doing quite well in the championship and so is the car that you're about to try and pass, because there's just that extra edge to it, isn't there? In a way, you're more determined than ever to get past them because they're championship rivals, but also you really don't want it to go wrong because it could completely derail both of your championship hopes. So you've got to, if you're going to make a move, it's got to be a high percentage move. Drive through for car 81, that's the Aston Martin, isn't it, of Sasha Glatter, for contact with car number 32, which was the GTWR RHE Academy, lap 32. I didn't think that made sense because 32 has withdrawn from the race. 285 is the car that it hit, and that's the Sidemax Motorworks Mercedes of Harry Spears and Marcel Fusey. So we saw that earlier on, didn't we? And the penalty has been handed out. Mattia, though, has caught Van der Kekelt again now, hasn't he? So let's see where, if anywhere, this move is going to come with just over a quarter of an hour to go.
Well, we will certainly find out. As you said, 15 minutes left on the clock. And what a cracking race we've had here for race 4 here of the Sprint Cup Season 4 at Nurburgring. David Christie and Andy McEwan taking you through the final throws of this race, and it really has given us quite a lot to talk about, mostly from random past the pole. They've put one foot on the stranglehold that they've got on the championship. They've almost got one hand on that trophy with just 2 rounds left to go in the championship. It's a huge turn up there. And Karim Mattia, you saw that one, he was pushing too hard there, and that puts him in huge trouble now, because look at that Porsche of Niels Klinkenmuller behind him, and Alexander Novikov is in on absolute charge right now. Look at how much pace that Porsche's got, and the Porsche is making a huge late effort here in the last 15 minutes. Really trying to catch up in that Aston Martin, but Porco, despite the late charge for the Porsches, looks like he's an absolute sitting duck for that Aston Martin, doesn't he, Andy?
Yeah, the way that this gap has come down, it was 1.7 seconds, I think, when Novikov cleared Kreutzer. Kreutzer is now 3.1 seconds behind him and has already bridged that gap to Porco, who, of course, has this 5-second penalty. It's in Porco's best interest, I think, to let Novikov go here, because if he starts defending, he's going to lose more time. And with this 5 seconds to be added on, his target now really needs to be building a 5-second cushion over Kreutzer in 16th. So there's no point having this battle with Novikov. I'm sure he won't listen. Yep, moves to the inside to try and defend. Or is he actually going to let him go? Blimey, a racing driver who's actually listening to what I'm saying for once. Through goes Novikov then into that 14th place. And that was really sensible stuff from Porco. There was no point in engaging in a battle with a car that is clearly quicker than you when you already have a 5-second penalty.
Well, talking of penalties, it's a drive-through to car 100. That is Andre Michel in the Aston Martin down in 23rd position. That is for an incident between him and the number 7 car. And of course, that's the McLaren, isn't it? That's the Carbon SimSport Blue of Damien Pavlos on lap 36. So that'll be before the pit stop, I want to say. So maybe that was Marius Tvorzidlo that was behind the wheel of that one. But anyway, a drive-through to car 100. And that'll make the number 7 maybe feel a tiny little bit better about the really miserable race that they've had so far just now. Seen that Sasha Glatter in the 81 still got that drive through to serve. Now they've only got a couple of laps in which they have to serve that, and that one has certainly been up for at least a lap and a half now, so I would imagine Sasha will have to come in on this lap round.
Yes, probably. They may squeeze one more. I have to say I didn't take note of what lap the penalty was handed out at, but yeah, if he doesn't, then that penalty will only worsen ultimately, so I'm sure we will see him heading into the pit lane. So realistically then, for Alexander Novikov, 13th is as good as this is going to get without other people hitting problems. Of course, he could benefit from Glatter's drive-through actually, so he may get into the top dozen then, but you can see that the number 23 Mercedes right ahead of Alexander Sescher is not that far clear of the 41 Aston Martin for now. Florian Durkop, meanwhile, 26th place. The last time we saw him, he was battling for that 26th, wasn't he, with Sackness in the McLaren, who's only 1.2 seconds behind him. And Durkop has now caught Sheldon Muscat, who's got this 10-second penalty for the contact earlier on. There goes Sescher wide at the final corner. Novikov's up the inside. Now can Sescher fight back? The Mercedes is good in a straight line, but so is that Aston Martin, and the Aston Martin has the inside for turn number 1. Novikov has got the move made. Does he choose to stay in the middle of the road to defend? No, he's confident enough on the brakes to take the racing line, and that was the right thing to do because he gets into the corner and out of it ahead and moves into 13th. But yeah, that might just be as high as he's able to get now.
And it's a frustrating one because you've got to wonder what would have happened if they didn't have that penalty. I think they would have definitely been in for sure the top 5 given the pace that the two of them have got. But yet again, it's a case of them kind of letting themselves down as Florian Durkop there almost takes an absolute chunk out the rear end of Sheldon Muscat there. The Porsche looking very, very fast. In fact, I did notice that on YouTube, somebody actually saying that, Gregor Schill saying that the Porsches look quick, and they absolutely do in this final stage of their stints. They seem to come to life. I don't know if that's maybe the fall off from the other cars, but yeah, these Porsches have got a lot of pace in them right now, Andy.
Yes, and that's backed up by the fact that the 5th place Porsche at the moment of Niels Klinkmuller started 14th, that car, and is now up into the top 5. So Klinkmuller actually not a million miles behind the Van der Kelt and Karim Mattea battle for the podium. So yeah, the Porsches are showing how strong they are. We should really have had another Porsche on the podium, shouldn't we, before Bastian Richter's really unfortunate disconnect in the first half of the race. But this always has been a good circuit for those rear engine cars. Anything with tight corners leading into long acceleration zones is going to suit a car with all of the weight hanging out over the rear axle. It can just squat down out of these hairpins and get extra traction from the rear tyres, and the Porsches really are perfectly suited almost to this their home circuit. And you can see Florian Durkop here really getting away now from Sheldon Muscat very, very quickly. In fact, Sheldon's going to have his hands full very shortly of that 112 McLaren. In fact, they're already battling, I can see in the background, and the McLaren running wide in its attempts to get through. Amazingly, David, we're into the final 10 minutes of the race. As ever, these Sprint Cup races, they do fly by, don't they?
They certainly do, and what a fun race we've had there. We've got a yellow flag halfway around the circuit. That's the number 23 Volante Racing Aztec SimSport, and that was Alexander Sescher that was behind the wheel of that one, currently in 13th place. You can see the car gets marked as white as he is recovering his way round, and we're currently watching Darren King still on the back of Felix Rupert here. This is the battle for 6th position. They're some way behind Niels Klinkmuller in the 15 Porsche, about 2 seconds behind him right now. but this is a fascinating battle between these two. It's been very steady between these two. It's almost like Dan King just pushing Felix Rupert as far as he possibly can without actually trying to make a move. We'll see if that lasts over the 8.5 minutes that we've got left to go. But I'm also looking at that battle between Niels van de Kerkelt and Karim Mattea for third and fourth position. After that huge moment for Mattea going wide and losing almost 2-3 seconds out of that, already back up to the back, but he's brought Niels Klinkmuller into that battle. So we're away to have potentially in the last 8 minutes, Andy, a 3-car scrap for third position.
Well, much as I'd like to see that, I'm not sure. I think Mattea is struggling. He's 1.3 seconds behind Van der Kerkelt now, as Darren King had a little look at the inside of Felix Rupert there into turn 3. They're side by side into turn number 4. Out of the Mercedes arena, good switchback is on, but the next corner is a left-hander, so that will favour Rupert in the 71 Aston Martin. Into the next turn, can King go right round the outside though to get the inside for the right-hander at turn 6? I think he will. Into the forward curve they go, and it's Aston Martin on Aston Martin action, and he's gone through. Then Darren King into 6th place. Really good move, that brave stuff round the outside through turn 5. There's a bit of camber in the road actually through these corners. You can see it again here down at the Dunlop curve. Oh, he's run a bit wide though despite that camber, and Felix Rupert just had a nibble out of the rear bodywork of the 38 car. Thankfully though, no major contact made, and King is able to make the move stay. That was the result of an awful lot of patience, that wasn't it? Because King had been stuck behind Rupert for a number of laps before he made that move. But yeah, very quickly, back to the point I was making before that battle kicked off. Mattea 1.25 seconds behind Van der Kerkelt, and not reeling him back in at the sort of pace that he was earlier. So I wonder if anything, maybe it's the Bentley that's running out of tyres.
Oh, I don't know about that, because that last lap round, Niels van de Kerkelt was 9/10 slower than Karim Mattea there. So the gap now down to 7/10 of a second. So for the very first time, I think ever, I hope everyone's recorded this, I might actually be right on something. So I'm going to bask in that glory. Back very quickly to Dan King, and I'm going to get up on my soapbox for a minute, just very, very briefly. That is exactly the sort of thing that we want to see. That stalking, that consistent lap after lap after lap, prodding and poking and just waiting to see where the car in front, where it's weak and where there potentially could be a move done. That's exactly what Dan King did lap after lap, and just so precisely put his car up the inside where he knew that it would have a high chance of working, and that was an exemplary overtake from Dan King on Felix Rupert. And for the most part, again, you've got to remember that it's a 2-car thing to get an overtake done. Felix Rupert gave him the racing room and acknowledged that it was done when it was done. Tried to have a little look up the inside and maybe had a little love tap on the end there just to say, yeah, you can have that place, sunshine. But yeah, great move there as we see Sasha Clark trying to go around the outside of Luca Kreuzer. I cannot believe that's just worked. Sasha's going to get the run down into turn number 2. That is a move and a half, Andy.
Yeah, that was perfectly judged, really committed on the brakes, which the Aston Martin always is good under braking, and on the wider line he could brake a bit later than Kreuzer anyway, carried the momentum round the outside and then bought himself a ticket to the inside at turn 2. That is one of the things I really like about the Nurburgring. There are a lot of sections of track where it's a right-hander immediately into a left, so if you're brave to go round the outside of one corner, that will give you the inside for the next turn, and that again is what we sort of saw there from Glatter. It's exactly what we saw from Darren King on Felix Rupert earlier on. So as this battle continues on then, at the head of the field, it is still looking very good, isn't it, for Maciej Malinowski. 14 seconds his advantage now over Kilian Raiminen in second, and that gap between Van der Kerkelt and Mattea has gone up again. I think Mattea is just making a few mistakes out there now.
Yeah, he went too deep into Warsteiner curve and lost a little bit of time, dropped back even further. He will gain that time back up very, very quickly, but again, with 5 minutes left to go, you don't have too many more opportunities. And to be honest, I don't know if he will be able to get that done on Niels van de Kerkelt, because Niels able to make that car as wide as he possibly can. Back to the point of Maciej Malinowski though, 45 laps in, and I mean, we've barely spoken about him because he's just been so far out in front. A 14-second gap he's got over second place, and at least 42 seconds back to everybody else out on the field there. Random past the ball. This is a championship winning drive right here. This is exactly what the team needed from the pair of them, not just Maciej in that 9 and 2, but from Michael Tauscher as well. It was Michael that set them up in the best possible way for this race, getting that pole position so convincingly and at least 0.2 of a second ahead of everyone else there, and getting onto that opening stint of the race and just a flawless opening drive. It was really, really good. But Mattea back onto the tail end of this McLaren here. And this is what you were saying about 20 minutes ago, Andy. This is what we saw from George Boothby in the closing stages of the stint. The tyres just completely drop off from that McLaren, and it is a sitting duck now. So I now want to take that back from being a case of I don't know if, but surely it's going to be a case of when. It's never ever going to work around here at the chicane. It's going to be a case of lining it up. Maybe it's just a case of trying to put all the pressure they can, but it's all going to be on the run down to turn one, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, Mattea took the wide line there into the Coca-Cola curve. Out of the final turn he goes, but the McLaren's got good horsepower in a straight line. It's a very slippery shape, that 720S, and you can see that Mattea isn't gaining on him, and that means he's not close enough to have a go into turn one. Yes, Mattea is undoubtedly the quicker of the two, but he's also the one making the more mistakes, isn't he? Because he keeps dropping back by a second all of a sudden because he's made a mistake, he's run wide into a corner. So far, Van der Kerkelt has not put a wheel wrong. There's a gap on the inside. There wasn't really, but Mattea made one. 2 wheels over the curb. Now, Van der Kerkelt's not going to like that. He fights back into turn 4. Look who arrives on the scene. Niels Klinkmuller from 14th on the grid now sniffs an opportunity for a podium with a lap and a half to go.
Well, this is starting to get a bit exciting, is it? 2 minutes left to go. I'll be honest, that was never, ever going to happen. That was really naughty of Karim Mattea, and fair play to Niels van der Kerkelt. He sensed that was going to happen. He allowed the room that he didn't have to do, but he avoided an accident by pulling out there, knew that he could get the drive out of the corner. And that was a really, really mature drive to Niels van der Kerkelt. Really impressed with how he dealt with that one there. But look at the pace that Karim Mattea has got. And again, this is the impatience coming in here. You can sense that he's got the faster car. But it doesn't matter if you're the faster car. If you can't get yourself cleanly and safely ahead of the car in front, then it's absolutely irrelevant. Final lap though for Maciej Malinowski for Random Past the Ball Racing. We'll keep an eye on that picture in picture. Here comes Karim Mattea again with a charge on the McLaren. What is it going to be though? It's on the run up to the final chicane. Oh, and a mistake for the McLaren there. That opens up the door for the Bentley, and as easy as you like, up he goes, and the Porsche fancies having a little go at that as well. The McLaren gets to close the door, but there you go. That's all the Bentley had to do. That's all they had to do was force the mistake from the McLaren. A little bit I wasn't expecting that from Niels, to be honest, but the tyres are shot, and it's now going to be disaster recovery because the Porsche are trying to have a little go at this as well. You think that the Porsche surely is going to get past there, but final place on the podium on the last lap of the race goes to Karim Mattea, but the lap isn't over yet and it's not even close.
That is music to the ears, though, of Random Past the Ball, isn't it? Because that is their nearest championship rival losing another place, and with it, 4 points. You score 36 points for finishing third, 32 for finishing fourth. So that one mistake there, too much curb in the first part of the chicane for Niels van der Kerkelt, has cost him a podium and 4 championship points. And he now, as you say, needs to be careful not to make sure he loses another place to Niels Klinkmuller. But what can we say about Random Past the Ball? This has been a dominant performance, but it's nothing new because they have won the other 2 races that they've won so far this season. They also won by a large margin. Kyalami, they won by 21 seconds. Last time out at Bathurst, it was a 13-second victory. This one is going to be another dominant victory for the 992 car.
Yep, around the final corner then for the final time. Maciej Malinowski lights up the tyres on the Porsche and comes across the line then to win round 4 of the SimGrid Sprint Cup here. And what a race it's been for Random Past the Bull Racing, leading the championship and leading it going into the final 2 races with style. Killian Ryan Meenan gets on the gas pedal out of the final corner then for the 888 FFS Sendy Fuse Racing, and it's on to P4 then, because P3 is going to go to Karim Mateo for Omega G Performance. And here we go. Can Niels be beaten across the line? I think he's done all he needs to do. And there we go. Great finish there for Niels van de Kekelt, given the pressure he was under. Niels Klinkmuller in the Porsche in 5th place. Dan Kink finishes in 6th. Felix Repair in the 71. Aston in 7th position. It's going to be the number 70 of Oliver Sykes. Oh, there's contact! Huge moment there for Marius Lebec. He's been absolutely punted, and that is the 41 again. Absolutely no surprises there. No need for that whatsoever. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, it's getting beyond the joke here, Andy.
I was just about to say how impressed I was that Novikov had caught those two, because I'd said he wasn't going to catch Fusey and Lebec before the end, and he had, but just because you've caught them and it's the last lap doesn't mean you have to try and drive through them. And I think that Marius Lebec has every reason in that Carbon SimSport McLaren to be a little bit peeved at that. We'll get a replay, I'm sure, because there may be an argument to say that he moved over on Novikov, but I'm not convinced. I'm trying to present a defence there for Novikov, but I'm not sure how strong it is. That is an unfortunate way to end what had been up to that point a brilliant fight back.
Yeah, it really, really had, and for me, it's a bit of a bugbear, because how many times can one team get themselves into this position? And that's exactly what it is that, you know, you're continually putting yourself into these positions where race control are looking at you and scrutinising you and you know, judging every single thing that you're doing. And you've got to say, some of the teams further down the list might be getting off with things that, you know, maybe they wouldn't have, because of the, you know, they get that benefit of the doubt, whereas it's almost like, you know, race control, who undoubtedly judge every incident on its merits, but, you know, how fed up must they be of seeing, you know, complaint against car number 41 coming in? It's yeah, it's frustrating to say the least, but it means absolutely nothing to your race winners, Maciej Malinowski and Michael Tauscher, who take a very, very well-deserved win there, Andy. We've said it a couple of times through the broadcast. It was absolutely flawless there.
Yeah, inch perfect, wheel perfect, not a single mistake, and that's their 3rd win on the bounce. I'll have to go back and look through the previous season standings, but I don't think that's been done before, has it, in the 3.5 seasons or so of Sprint Cup that we've had now. That is true dominance. It's not going to give them an enormous championship lead, because the UK OG 47 car still finished in 4th place, so the gap will only go out by another 8 points, so they're not even going to double their championship advantage. They've still got to execute well over the final couple of rounds, but if they keep that pace going, then yeah, they're going to be almost impossible to beat in this championship, aren't they?
Yeah, they really, really are. So let's go and have a chat then with James Parker and Killian Ryan Meenan, who takes 2nd place then in that 888 FFS Sendy Poos Racing. Let's go and drag them in and have a little chat. So James Parker and Killian Ryan Meenan, 2nd place, guys. Firstly, that team name, FFS Sendy Poos Racing, we need to get an answer on that.
Ask Killian.
Yeah, Killian, what's that all about?
The team name is FFS Racing, but we, instead of taking racing, we just try and spice it up each time with, so sometimes it can be FFS Spicy Beaver, FFS Major Mammals, and in this case we're FFS Sendypers because it's just funny. We do have a livery that we need to submit for the next round because it's great.
I get the feeling there's a /S after the end of that one. We'll come back to you in just a second, Killian. But James, you took the first stint of the race. That was an interesting day out of the races, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was frustrating, I think is probably the right word. It's so hard to overtake here, and even with the ballast, McLaren gets such good exits that for the first half an hour I was literally just stuck. Couldn't do anything. So it was just a case of just waiting for George to make a mistake or get close enough, and thankfully there was one lap where he made a mistake in the chicane that I could get a good enough run off the final corner, and turn one, I think he kind of knew that it would be quicker for us both if he just let me go. So props to him really for kind of letting me go and try and chase the top two Porsches. But yeah, we lost just too much time there. I think it would have been close between us and Tauscher and Malinowski if I could get through quicker, but we just settled for second after the pit stop and just brought it home. So
on that note, you mentioned their frustration. It seems to be a running theme for a lot of the drivers tonight, but we didn't see you, getting yourself into any awkward positions. How difficult is it out there as a driver when you've got a car that you know you're faster than to be able to back off from that?
Well, like if you're quicker, because we were catching P2. George was quick enough to catch P2, so we just had a chat, me and Killian. Even though I was quicker than George, we were both catching P2, so it made no sense to fight all the time and lose lots of time fighting between ourselves to then get out of touch with P2. So after kind of 20 minutes, it didn't look like we could really get through cleanly without forcing a scary move. It was just a case of just sticking on his tail, using the draft, and just trying to pull yourselves up to P2. So it wasn't difficult. It was frustrating because you know what the car can do, but at the same time you've got to think about the long game as well. And I think if it was so easy for us to send it in this early laps, make a mistake, hit George, and then you get a penalty, and then your race is ruined. So you just got to think of the big picture sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Killian, we'll come on to yourself after the pit stop. You were in for the second stint, and quite honestly, you were very lonely out there. You had pretty much nobody anywhere near you.
No, I was surprised. I knew we weren't really going to be able to catch the Tauscher and Malinowski's Porsche on pace, but we just needed to extend the gap to P3, P4 because they were quite quick in stint 1, and I think they just got caught up in each other's battle, and we just drove away. It was pretty lonely, and it was an easy enough stint. James did the heavy lifting today, and I just got in and did a few laps, and then we're P2. So yeah, it was good. It's good fun.
Yeah, no, it does sound like it was a good day out, and obviously some important championship points. Now, you came into this round in 11th place. I'm not sure where that actually puts you in the top 10, but again, a really good performance. And going into the final two races, is the championship on your mind at all, or is it just a case of just getting whatever performances that you both can?
Yeah, we saw a lot of cars. We just had a quick glance through the standings before the race started, and a lot of the cars we're fighting that weren't the UCOG and the Pass the Ball car were behind us. So we knew we had a good chance to close the gap to the top 3 or 4. And then we saw Igor get the drive-through, and someone else, I think the 81, got a drive-through. We're fighting them in the championship, so this is a good push. We need the points for Zandvoort because it's quite a weak Assen track, and then hopefully we can just damage limitation there and use Spa for the max attack towards the end. So yes, it is something we're thinking about, but the Porsche looks pretty unstoppable at the moment.
Excellent stuff. Well, thank you very much, James Parker and Killian Ryan from FFS Racing. Good luck, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.
Thanks, guys.
David. Take care.
So there we go then. Let's go and have a chat with Giuseppe Montalbano, who obviously finished in third position there in the number 340 for Omega E Racing team. Giuseppe, a very, very good evening, my friends. I hope you're with us. Third place, a really, really good performance, but my goodness me, that was sketchy at the end there.
Hey guys, thank you. Yes, this result is so important for championship after a difficult race at Bathurst. So this evening we can take a lot of points, and yes, a great race, and new teammate Karim Mattea done a really good job. When I see that he take fight with Van de Kerk. Wow, so stressed. But yes, was be a clear fight and okay, a great race.
I was just the way to say that because, I mean, you must have been going through the roof when you were seeing how hard he was pushing that car. And for the most part, he was able to keep it onto the track. But with him coming on board with the team, it's now a very, very quick partnership that you two have got.
Yeah, thank you.
Looking ahead to the final 2 rounds of the championship, how do you fancy your chances?
Okay, at Zandvoort the Bentley is so strong, so I hope that will be a good race for take a lot of points. Spa, I don't know, because it's a sprint race, no? So on qualifying, I think that Bentley do not be the fastest car. So we do a lot of work.
Well, thanks very much for coming and having a chat to us tonight, Giuseppe. All the best and congratulations on 3rd place.
Thank you, guys.
That was Giuseppe Montalbano then from the 340 Omega E-Racing team, teamed up with Karim Matea, who certainly left his mark, but it's time, isn't it? It's time to go and chat to the untouchables of Maciek Malinowski then and Michael Tauscher of Random Past the Bowl Racing. A stunning win for you guys tonight. Congratulations to Maciek Malinowski and Michael Tauscher. Maciek, we'll come to yourself first because, I mean, that was just an amazing finish for you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Yeah, we had just really amazing evening, amazing race. We enjoyed ourselves, enjoyed the car and the track. So we had a simple objective for today that we gave ourselves. We knew that we can be strong here. We loved that track and track car combo, both of us. So we knew we can be strong, and we just set to get most of it, and that's exactly what we did. Yeah, from our perspective, it looked a bit easy, but I think it's just that all that practice that we did over the years on that track just paid off. It's just that, yeah, like I said, we just like that track, like that car, and we did a lot of running on it throughout the years. So we were just familiar with that track car combo.
And
thanks.
Michael, coming to yourself, you obviously put the team in the best possible position with that incredible qualifying lap, and then you took first stint as well, and you were just relentless on that pace. Was there any point where you felt worried about the cars behind?
No.
Good answer. That's what we like. We like a little bit of honesty here at SimGrid. But I mean, obviously, Maciek just said there. Some people might see that was easy, but it really isn't easy, is it? I mean, to keep on that level of pace for so long, how difficult is it for you?
I mean, it looks easy because basically everyone knows that Porsche is super fast on this track, but it's hard to be consistent and do that for 45 minutes flat, and that's what we did. I think we were just quicker overall, and our practice paid off.
Well, we're rapidly running out of time, guys, but I mean, the brilliant win tonight sets you up fantastically well for Zandvoort and for Spa. Maciek, what are the team's thoughts going ahead to those 2 final races?
Well, like you said, we're in a great place right now after those races, and even before today's race, we obviously, because we knew that we can score a lot, we're motivated to do so, because we know that we could do what we basically did. So put ourselves in a great position with a bunch of points lead. But again, we're coming into next circuits that we like. I think Michael unfortunately won't be able to drive next race, so I'll have to find someone else. But I like Zandvoort. I was racing in SRO there, also with Porsche, so I know how it goes, and we're feeling really confident in the championship, and we'll do everything in the next 2 rounds to bring it home and score big points in both rounds. Spa, we know that isn't really a Porsche track, but in every round we have custom BOP, so who knows what car will be strong where, because sometimes we can expect some car to dominate somewhere, but it's gonna be completely the other way around, and we saw that already in the championship.
Well, an amazing effort tonight, guys. Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers for having us. Cheers.
So there we go then, Maciej Malinowski and Michael Tauscher. Andy, wrapping things up here, what a race we had there, and I've got to be honest, it's very difficult to see anybody that has anything to bring to Random Pastable Racing.
Yeah, I'll go along with that, to be honest. I was posing the question before those interviews as to whether anyone had ever won 3 races in a row before. It has happened once, actually, way back in Season 1, back when we used to have 2 races in the same night. Christie and Bianchi won a race at Misano, then 2 races the week after at the Hungaroring. No one has ever won 4 races in a row in Sprint Cup, and do you know what? I really would bet against them doing it in 2 weeks' time. Zandvoort is another circuit that Porsche should go well at, and I really think they're going to be on the pace again. Oh, and by the way, Christie and Bianchi, the only other person to have won 3 in a row, did go on to win the Season 1 championship, so I think the writing is a little bit on the wall for the others, but as we saw tonight, it's such an unpredictable series, anything can happen, and with 2 more races and still 100 points left on the table, it is still well and truly all to play for.
It really, really is. So if you're wanting to keep up with the next round, which is going to be at Zandvoort, join us in 2 weeks' time at the same time, where we will be finding out what exactly happens with the tail end of that championship. As always, head over to thesimgrid.com to check out one of the most packed calendars you will find in Assetto Corsa Competizione community racing, and we will be back before you know it with more action as well. Also, a huge thank you to our commercial partners at Coach Dave Academy and also at Thrustmaster. Head to Coach Dave Academy for professionally developed esports ready sim racing setups, and over at Thrustmaster for some awesome new sim racing hardware for the likes of the TGT2 and all those awesome new developments that they are announcing over the next year, so you're going to want to head over there. I've been David Christie. Joining me in the virtual commentary booth has been Andy McEwan. From the both of us, thank you very much for joining us here on the SimGrid YouTube channel. A huge thank you to Mike Yao and to Michael Hamlet on our production team as always, and we will see you soon for more racing.